Hello and welcome to Fresh Face Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friend through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me, as always, is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
Hush, little Batman, don't say a word. Alfred's gonna find you a brand new bird.
With any luck, And joining us today is a long-awaited guest on the podcast, who I'm very excited to have on with us today. For mentioned, I'm pretty sure on like every single episode, at least most of them at this point. Yeah. Well, maybe not the ones before we started doing questions, but Jamie is here.
Yeah.
Frequent listeners of the podcast will know him as @Jamie_season7, as I've said a million times. You can, you can follow him on Twitter. I'll leave that linked in the description below. He has some fantastic comic book takes and some not so fantastic Doctor Who takes. So you can go check those out. He's a great guy, and I'm very excited to have him on the podcast today. How are you, Jamie?
I'm all right, yeah.
Nice. I'm very excited to have you here. Today we are talking about Batman Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee. Of course, as always, before we get into the podcast, just thank you all, as always, for listening to the podcast. It really has meant a lot, especially recently, because we've seen
that's been insane.
Viewership has been fantastic lately. To all the people who have joined us over from YouTube because of a certain spike in a certain video that we've had recently, welcome. My name is Joey. We do a podcast together called Fresh Face Comics that you're listening to right now. I'm a lifelong reader. Jacob is the newbie. Jamie has read this story before, once or twice, probably?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And before we get into this, actually, let's give us a bit of history on like your history with Batman as a character, history with comics as a whole. I know, obviously, you're one of the more well-versed readers we've had on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, Batman, it was like the Batman the animated series, and then Brave and the Bold. That was what I grew up with. So
nice. Yeah, awesome. And obviously, I know you've read a ton of Batman comics. But today, but I think the reason that we had you on this one was because we got into a minor Twitter spat about how you weren't a huge fan of this story.
Yeah.
And so obviously, I was very interested to get, I think, our first properly like negative opinion on here. I'm sure you're not going to be like raging against it the whole time, but
I mean, it's more positive than the last episode. But
well, that's good. Good. Well, that's fantastic. All right. So I'm very excited to get into this. Let's do that. Starting off with our non-spoiler section, as always. Jacob, as the person that has read this story for the first time, what is Hush about? What's it all about? What happens in it? Without giving anything away.
So I think the best way to actually describe Hush is let's deconstruct and see if we can make Bruce Wayne go insane ever so slowly along with the reader. Because this is of the three Jeff Loeb 12-issue story arc / miniseries. This was the one where I did not figure out the mystery until the very end.
Yeah, we did a bit of a fun thing with this one. We did it with Dark Victory too, but I'm not sure if we mentioned it on the episode. Where we just happened to be on a Discord call at the same time, and you were reading the last 2 issues, and like while I was there with you, so like I was just like hearing your reactions to it as you read. You're like, no, that's not. No way. It's just like it was really great with this one because with Hush, unlike Long Halloween and Dark Victory. Although it is a mystery, it's not quite a mystery in the same vein as those other 2 series. This one is more about creating questions, not so much answering them explicitly and leaving certain gaps in the story so that Bruce as a character and as such the audience isn't able to as easily string together each piece of the mystery as it comes together. And I really enjoy that aspect of it myself.
I think it's also just so structurally different. Like, these are all basically regular length issues. It's not they're not the longer issues, and we don't really follow a month by month. Each issue is a new month. A new murder is happening. This is all one big mystery where you don't actually know what the mystery is until near the very end.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing, because it's very much setting up, like, we keep seeing this mysterious figure who is never referred to by name. That is important.
Movie.
And,
That is important. Oh God. Okay. I think this is a great time to get into actually two of our Twitter questions. First off, one of them is just saying something we'll be doing on this episode. So, Kian at Kian the Quark says, will the movie be mentioned? Yes, it will. Stick around to the end. We're going to talk about it.
I have so
here.
many thoughts about that movie.
You both watched it fairly recently. Jamie
Yeah.
for the first time recently, and Jacob, obviously, you watched it after you read the comic. We'll talk about it more later. But Kian adds on to it. It's an amazing twist. Honestly, top 10 comic book movie twists of all time. I have to agree. I mean, come on.
That twist isn't what annoys me about the movie.
It is. It's just the icing on the shit cake, isn't it?
Yeah, it's there are other things, and yeah, we'll get to it.
And then our second one that I want to bring up, because we already started talking about the differences between his other series. English Giraffe at English_Giraffe says, I think a question for me is whether you found if the structure and pacing of Hush to be different from Long Halloween / Dark Victory. So you started mentioning this to me in messages early on.
Yeah,
when you started
it
reading
was
this, Jacob.
Well, it was very weird. So I read the first issue. I'm like, okay, this doesn't feel as like a complete package as like the first issue of Long Halloween or the first issue of Dark Victory does.
Mhm.
Like, it just feels, oh, okay. So it took a couple issues to kind of lean into that, into sort of that, this is a monthly series and not like in the actual Batman title, and not.
Yeah, I think that's something
Maxi
important to
series.
remember as you're reading it, though. Is like if you're familiar with the other Jeff Loeb Bat books, like this one is taking place in the main Batman title. This is
Yeah.
12 issues of the original 713 of the first Batman title. This is it's just 12 issues of that larger series, whereas the other two were just retellings of Batman's early days, and it can take a bit more creative liberties. Like in this, Loeb is playing in the larger DC universe, and he obviously is very excited to do that, as he shows multiple times throughout this. So it's pretty cool. But also, yeah, it can lead to some differences that I guess can be jarring if most of what you're familiar with when it comes to Bat books is Long Halloween and Dark Victory. Jamie, anything to add on the differences between this and the other Loeb books?
I haven't actually read the others, so.
Oh, seriously?
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
You should. They're great.
They are
yeah.
fantastic. Okay, that's interesting. So I guess just as a 12-issue miniseries here, then, like, how do you take this in, having not experienced those other two?
But I think I think it is just like, it does definitely read. You can tell it's just issues of Batman rather than so separate.
Rather than like telling their own story,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. Although despite that, it does still feel very distinct, though. Like I think
Definitely.
you can just sort of pick this up, and any sort of like things that stray from the normal Batman that most readers would know, like they explain pretty willingly in this. Like, okay,
Yeah.
well, here's what's up with Harvey Dent. Here's what's going on with Lex Luthor right now. Here's with Ra's and Talia. Like those are some things that they need to address, and they address pretty reasonably. I think, like Jacob, like I don't think you were lost at all.
Yeah, the only thing that I think, the only character I think is served perhaps poorly is Huntress, because she's just kind of there at the beginning.
Huntress, I guess Huntress they do sort of take for granted as just a given of the Bat book at the time. Like, like she was just regularly a part of it, and so I guess they didn't feel as much need to explain her away.
Yeah, which is weird. Jamie, I'm curious, have you, because I know you're also a big Marvel reader.
Yes.
Have you read any of Loeb's Marvel work?
No. Well, apart from like the odd issue he's done, no. I've stayed.
Wow. Huh. So would you say that because you weren't as big a fan of Hush that turned you off from some of his other work?
Sort of, yeah.
Interesting. Because obviously for me, like I had Jacob read Jeff Loeb right off the bat, and we were obviously big fans of him, from the get. So I think that's rather interesting because for us, I guess he was so easy to get into and such a great introduction to Batman. I find that really interesting. But I mean, I would recommend definitely checking out his other stuff. He's done some great work.
The only other stuff I hear might have read is Haunted Night.
Okay, Haunted Knight's rather good. I like I like the Christmas Carol issue in that. That's really
Yeah.
good. I mean, they're all really good, but the Christmas Carol issue,
Yeah.
Carol issue especially, that's really good.
Yeah.
Cool,
definitely.
cool. So, all right, we've covered some Jim Lee on the podcast before. Did you find the art any different here, Jacob, compared to when we did Origin?
Okay, I think it feels a little more detailed here, and it does honestly some more interesting things with its style here. Possibly because, Jim Lee wasn't also trying to redesign everyone for the new 52.
Yeah. Just despite the fact that, like, this is like typically like what most people think of as like the early 2000s Batman costume. It's not so much a redesign, but it is like Jim Lee's own version of it, and it works really well. Also, I mean, this is like the dream team. That this is Jim Lee, Scott Williams, and
Alex
Alex
Sinclair.
Sinclair.
Yeah.
So it's like like they work together so well. I think it's very
And
easy to
Richard
see, like,
Starkings is on lettering. I'm always happy to
yes,
see Richard
we love
Starkings'
we
name.
love Richard Starkings. Yeah, it's great. I love him.
And yes, I do pay attention to who letters the books, and because
And you should too,
Yeah.
listeners.
it's more important than you might think.
Yeah, honestly. Should we cover one of the other two Twitter questions before this, or no?
Perhaps.
Yeah, we could do that now, actually, because it does
Yes.
relate to one of our past episodes. So our friend Andrew M., who was on the podcast previously on the New Teen Titans Volume 2, at Andrew Doing Art, says, I'm one of the few people who don't love Hush, it seems. It's an amazing concept, but I don't think it has any real payoff in the story. Court of Owls did a similar thing much better, in my opinion. So it is funny that you say that, because we specifically brought someone on here who didn't like Hush very much. But I am aware that, like, other people don't like Hush, so you're not alone there, Andrew. And I was a little worried, I admit, that Jacob wasn't gonna like it, but I mean, I think you did get into it.
I did.
So in comparing it to Court of Owls, I guess obviously without spoiling anything from Court of Owls for those who haven't read that either, do you think that's a fair comparison? And do you think Court of Owls does indeed do it better?
Yeah.
Jamie, elaborate, please, because I disagree. I don't think they're doing the same thing outside of the surface level similarities of let's try to drive Bruce Wayne insane.
It feels Court of Owls definitely feels more unique. I think it helps that. Okay, I wouldn't say they're directly comparable, but I think it is just that it's obviously both. I'm trying to get. They asked me to elaborate. I don't think I actually.
I do get what you're trying to say there.
Yeah.
Like while they're not directly comparable, I do understand what Andrew is going for there in saying that like they both try to like get under Bruce's skin and really make him rethink how he does his detective work. And overall, I mean, even then, I think Jacob prefers Court of Owls as a story, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Court of Owls is it's still the best thing we've read for the podcast so far.
I'll find something else someday, I swear.
We'll see how it goes. But what I think is interesting is that really the only thing that I feel directly comparable to Hush is the labyrinth sequence in Court of Owls.
It's just that like 2 issues there. Yeah, that's about it.
But like the motivations for driving Batman insane are just completely different. Like
especially considering like who's behind it all in both cases.
Yeah, and in this one,
they're 2 very different characters.
And in this one, you don't find out who's behind it all until the very end.
Yeah, and and he means it, like the last 5 or 6 pages, like that's it,
And it drove me up a wall. But
because it's great, it's so great.
But what's especially interesting in comparing to Court of Owls is Court of Owls in the title tells you the identity of the villain, the Court of Owls themselves. They are an organization.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this Hush is technically a character, but
he is. Yeah, I would say he is. Yeah,
I would say that's also not really like a good name. It's mainly the title is an idea. It's not meant to refer to like a specific person, which is very important.
I think this is the
because
point where we're mostly gonna be able to talk about in spoilers because it's
Yeah,
very hard to
that's
talk
okay.
about here. But I do know what you're going for, and those that
Yeah.
have read it, I think, will also know.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
but yeah, anything else to cover before we get into spoilers?
well, the shipping. The shipping.
Oh yeah. Okay, so another thing I'm very glad I did and instilled in you very early on in the podcast is an interest in Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle as a permanent couple. Uh, so this is a very important story for that couple. I don't think you
Yes.
knew that going in. Like you knew Catwoman was in it, but that was about it, right?
I knew Catwoman was in it because she's on some versions of the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was more going in confused because listeners, if you remember the last episode, Joey told me this was the second step in the death and return of Jason Todd.
It is. It actually is. I
And
swear.
I was sitting like most of the book until it happens, just like, Joey, what does Jason have to do with this?
But in the meantime, here's some Batman Catwoman shipping.
Yes,
you know?
here's some great shipping. Also, I will say it's really interesting how Lee just throughout the book draws everybody.
Mhm.
It's very dynamic, and there's
Lee, like most of the Jeff Loeb books, Lee gets to take on most of the Batman Rose Gallery here, and like just seeing his very almost definitive interpretations of the characters, I absolutely love. I mean, this has that absolutely iconic Joker page where he's standing over the body. I love the way Lee draws Harley here. I especially love his Raish and Talia. I think they're
Yes.
fantastic.
Also there's a lesser artist might have included more fan service or been told to include more fan service. So it's there, but it's nowhere near as prevalent as other Jim Lee drawn books.
Yeah.
One in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna add something, but no, that's where that stays.
Also, there's more of the DC universe in this than I was really expecting. Like,
yeah. I mean, I know I told you ahead of time that like, yeah, Loeb gets to play in the larger DC universe, but like he does it very well, I think. Personally.
and there's like one cameo in particular that just caught me completely off guard, and I'm like, but it's so nice. It works so well for what that cameo does for the story.
I'm not sure who you're referring to.
The flashback one.
Oh, that one. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Before we get into spoilers, Jamie, any last rebuttals on our constant praising of this in the non-spoiler section?
No. You haven't said anything so far that I have to challenge. No.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Because I fully expect you to be willing to tell us, oh, you're totally wrong.
Oh yeah, like if we say something that you strongly disagree with, please speak up.
Please,
Um,
please.
it is strongly encouraged. All right, let's get into this. This is Batman Hush. We open on issue 6.
Are we gonna? Well,
What?
is the legend of the Batman and who he is and who he came to be?
We can talk about that quick because I really do. I like those first 3 pages.
Yeah.
Or first 2 pages. They're great.
Yeah, neither of us are sure where it came from. Joey, you think it's from that?
I'm pretty sure it's from Wizard Zero, right?
No,
Isn't it?
that is a later bit. I looked it up. That 2-page thing is just something that was on the DC Comics website.
Oh, okay. Huh.
So this is so that's
probably just included because of the creative team here. That makes
Probably,
sense.
very possibly.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's an interesting little retelling of Batman's origin in 2 pages. Some very nice Jim Lee art. But I think it actually does a really good thing of setting the tone. Because it's narrated by Alfred. And the interlude later on, which is from the Wizard magazine, is also
does almost directly relate to that, which is why I
Yeah.
thought they were from the same issue.
Yeah, they dovetail very nicely together.
Yeah, but what these first 2 pages do is they're just like, Alfred cares for Bruce, what else is new? But it ends on a very poignant line where he says, they now call him Batman, but I will always see him as that little boy lost, struggling to find a way to make up for not being able to save his parents' lives. And I can only offer him something I fear he sorely lacks: love. And I think, like, despite the fact that it's not technically related to the actual 12 issues in any way, I think it totally sets the tone. And
I mean, it basically gives you Jeff Loeb's philosophy on who Batman is at his core, which I think in all the miniseries and everything that he's written involving the character, as far as I can tell, shines through. Which is why, once again, if you, I'll say it, we need more film Jeff Loeb adaptations.
please. But yeah, let's open on Batman 608, The Ransom. So we open in the sewers here. Great little opening sewer sequence. We get some backstories to what's happened here. A boy has been kidnapped by Killer Croc. Batman is making his way through the sewers here, trying to find him. He's interrogating some thugs. Just some great openings, action shots here, where like just seeing Batman being Batman. It's fantastic.
Well, but I love that the way Loeb sets up and Lee's art works to set up Batman as this like larger than life figure. Like you see just the shadow looming over the kid, and he looks terrified.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And all he says, stay down on the floor and cover your ears. And then we actually get our title page. It's "I'm going to get you out of here," because I think it's important that Batman has a soft side, and some authors don't respect that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's some great narration. Doing this interesting internal conflict all set up already, of Bruce not necessarily thinking he's perhaps as set out to be part of a family, just because just specifically here with Clark could smile, that Boy Scout thing, and then say something homespun to put the boy at ease. But the boy doesn't have Clark; he has me. In my city, Gotham City, it is better that way. Which I think you could take in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. I think the way that it should be interpreted, I think, and the way that I know we both take it, Jacob, is that like this is what Bruce tells himself, that he's not a better man than Superman. But it's something that he tells himself. It's obviously not true. He's a fantastic man. Who stands up alongside Superman easily. And
I mean that's also part of the point of Hush as a story, and we'll get to it.
It's Bruce doubting himself. Yeah.
And then eventually confronting his biggest mistake. But then we get the gorgeous 2-page Killer Croc spread, and
Croc comes out. We get a great fight scene here. He has this money in a briefcase. I don't know why. I always thought that Jim Lee kind of drew Croc like a lizard here from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That. I mean, I think they explain it because it's like he's mutating.
Well, it's the lizard mixed almost with a plant.
Yeah.
Some of the veins almost look plant-like, or like his skin is being ripped, which I think is fascinating, and it's really interesting just because this is the first time we've read something with Killer Croc for the podcast.
That is true.
That is obviously we discussed him in the Batman the Animated Series episode, but here he's really kind of sympathetic in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Which
for me I think is just how you should always do Killer Croc. I don't think he's just some muscle, I really do think there's an actual character there. But so I like that that's played on here. But yeah, so he comes out. He has the briefcase full of money. There's a nice little fight here.
Bruce uses some hypersonics,
and is able to escape. He strings Croc up by some chains.
The kid cheers.
I was like, Edward, be quiet. So they chain up Croc. This sort of like SWAT team comes in here, or it's the FBI. They come in here, and Batman sees that somebody is there swinging behind them, who has taken the money away that was left behind by Croc. So Batman swings away from the FBI and goes after Catwoman. Jeff Loeb loves doing these. It's another rooftop chase sequence with Batman and Catwoman. What else do you want?
This time it's drawn by Jim Lee, so it's even better.
Yeah, I mean, not to say anything against Tim Sale, obviously.
But it's also, again, at this point they are just actively flirting. This is how they flirt.
Well, that's the reason why Jeff Loeb writes these damn scenes, is just to have them flirt. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So yeah, so we get a nice little sequence here. They run through the rooftops, run across the rooftops. And then just interestingly, Loeb writes this little bit where just Batman misses. He attempts to jump on or no, he doesn't miss actually. He swings his rope up, tries to catch on the Catwoman, and the rope is seen to have been cut, but it doesn't show any action indicating how it happened or when it happened.
Just some
cut.
movement that it gets cut, and
Yeah.
he nearly falls. And
No, he does fall. He
he falls.
Falls. Yeah.
And he falls into an alley.
Some homeless people find him, and meanwhile, Catwoman runs away with a briefcase full of money and meets with a mysterious green person. I mean, it's no mystery, obviously. It's
they reveal that it's
it's Poison Ivy. It's right there. But yeah, I like the little play on the Long Halloween line. Where Ivy says here, you can't resist me. No man or woman can, and that's where the issue ends off. So,
and again, it's very quick. It's very quick. Very all right. We're setting up something interesting, something weird.
Yeah, because Catwoman doesn't just steal money for for anyone else, especially not for Poison Ivy. When Loeb has specifically written them at odds in the past.
Would they? Oh, I mean, especially in like Long Halloween, when with the Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day sequence, which is very interesting, but also interesting that this is our first issue. Like, it feels short. So it's not.
I mean, the pace is insane. Like, it just moves so fast.
That's not a bad thing, but you can really see, like, oh, this is moving at a very different style to what you might be expecting. Which part of it could be because we're reading this right after Death in the Family, Lonely Place of Dying, where each issue did move a bit slower. But it's frenetic.
This feels a lot more decompressed.
Yeah, definitely. Now, question for you, Jamie: is there like a point in this where it drops off, or is it like not, or is it like sort of from the start for you, or where does the issue begin? I guess.
I think this reread definitely it wasn't until probably not until chapter 6 or 7.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a pretty decent start then. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move right into Batman 608 or sorry 609. The Friend. So we open up here. These sort of like thugs and homeless people are like gathering around Batman. One of them tries to take off his mask and is sprayed with his gas. I always just like when a writer tries actually utilizes that.
Yeah.
Well, and the one thing I was excited for, we have Oracle communicating through the headset.
Yeah, which I don't think we've actually had in one of the books we covered before, right?
No, we haven't. We
haven't seen that at all.
We've had New 52 stuff where she's Batgirl.
Yeah,
and we've had the Killing Joke.
Shit. Well, here we go. Here's Oracle for you, Jacob. She's great, obviously, but yeah. So Oracle sends in some backup. This backup is Huntress. So, what did you know about Huntress beforehand, Jacob?
So I had seen Arrow.
Oh, no.
There you go. I mean, to be fair, the Arrow interpretation isn't completely awful.
See, yeah, it wasn't. I mean, she was an interesting character for Arrow.
Yeah, especially for those early seasons.
Especially, just remember, early season Arrow is still good. It's still good.
Yeah, those first 2 seasons are good. Just most things after that are not.
Did I not have any sort of idea who Oliver Queen should be and how he should be portrayed? Yes. That made me enjoy it more because he was just Batman.
He was just Archer Batman. That's but yeah, so Huntress is here. She comes in to save Batman. She takes on all these thugs and all these guys here, talking with Oracle the whole time, which I think is kind of fun. She takes them all out. It feels like
she's almost an outsider to the Bat family. Like
she kind of is, yeah. I mean, she's not completely trusted, I would say.
Yeah. So I'm guessing at this time in comics, there probably was something going on with her, right? To have her be in the
Huh?
book.
I'm not as familiar. Jamie, anything to add there?
Uh,
What was
I
happening
think-
with Huntress at the time?
I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I know that had been around for interacting with them for a bit.
Mhm.
But,
I mean, obviously, this is the post-crisis Huntress, where she's not the daughter of Bruce and Selena. So,
Wait,
so
what?
yeah, that was a thing pre-crisis where she was like the future daughter of Bruce and Selena.
Yeah. Okay, this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, here's DC.
Yeah, I know. So here's the thing, though. You know that Batman Catwoman series that Tom King just finished recently?
Yes.
He brought that back.
So
Like a fucking king. So yeah. So anyways, yeah. So Huntress, she takes on all these guys. She puts Bruce in the Batmobile. He's incredibly injured here. The Batmobile drives away by itself. And Huntress drives away as well. And meanwhile, there is this mysterious, trench-coated, bandaged figure standing atop this rooftop, and who says, "Without friends, no one would choose to live, though he had all other goods."
and he basically quotes Aristotle whenever he shows up. Like
Yeah.
he's quoting bits of Greek philosophy, which is interesting.
So I guess it's as good a time to bring it up as any. Jacob, how much did you know about Hush going in?
Absolutely nothing.
Really?
Interesting.
I knew that this was a story and that the villain was called Hush. I would argue that
That's
he really
still not
should.
entirely accurate.
Yeah, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's just a designation he is given because when talking about it, you have to call him something, but he should
Yeah.
never in universe refer to himself or have someone else refer to him as Hush. Hush is not a name. It's not even a noun. It's a verb.
But moving on, this mysterious trench-coated, bandaged figure goes into Poison Ivy, and she gives him the money, and he leaves her alone. Meanwhile, back in the Batcave, Alfred is looking after Bruce, and his injuries are fucking awful. So much so that Bruce cannot even speak, but he can communicate in a way. So he starts tapping out Morse code for Alfred, and taps out the name Thomas Elliot. Now, did you know the name Thomas Elliot going in, Jacob?
Again, I did not.
Hmm.
I also
I didn't know if you had watched Gotham at all before, because I know they used little kid Tommy Elliot on
I
Gotham.
had watched like the first season ish.
Okay.
I don't think he was in that.
I think he's in one of the early seasons. Might be 2 or 3 though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew he was there. I wasn't sure how far he got though.
Yeah, I only got through like season 1 because then it was like trying to keep up with a bunch of shows while also applying to college. Things get weird.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I also think it's really interesting that they have a contingency plan to explain why Bruce Wayne is all battered up.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
Like
what is it? Was it just who says that he's gonna crash the car for him? It's
they have Dick do it.
they have Dick. Yeah, they did crash the car. It's like you see a newspaper headline: Playboy Wayne in near fatal wreck. But a bunch of news channels are reporting on it. They fly in Dr. Thomas Elliot, who does the operation on Bruce and saves his life. And then we learn who Thomas Elliot is, so we get some flashbacks here.
I love his introduction. Why does everyone look so serious? This is just brain surgery, folks. I'll have us back out on the golf course before lunch.
It's like, ha ha ha, rich people.
Bruce, if you wanted to get together after all this time, you didn't have to try to kill yourself to do it.
So, I think it's pretty easy to see this brand new character coming in and be like, okay, that's Hush right there. You know?
That's where my brain went. It's like, this is obvious.
I mean, hey, if we're comparing it to Court of Owls, it does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
that is one thing that I will say I think Hush does better. If we're talking about the new character introduced that happens to be the bad guy, like it's this version does it better, I would say.
Well, they also make Tommy a bit more of a presence throughout, whereas Lincoln March is just kind of there.
Yeah,
in those early issues.
Lincoln March disappears after the first 2 issues, so you don't suspect him at all. So it's
but
he's still the only new character there, and he's drawn exactly like Bruce. So
At least this time they made someone ginger.
Yeah, yeah. It's a nice change of pace.
Yeah. Can actually
Ah.
tell who's who.
But yeah, so we go into our first flashback. So what do you think of like the style of the flashbacks here? The sort of like almost watercolor type thing.
I absolutely love it. Uh, it makes it so moody and really plays into sort of the tragedy of the character because it's like you're going to be building to the point where the Waynes are killed,
Hmm.
and we're going to be revealing bits of Bruce Wayne's childhood. Nothing, nothing too scary, but like we start like the first flashback is all in like the Wayne Manor drawing room by firelight. Like Bruce and Tommy are playing a game of strategy. Uh, you know, Bruce Bruce ends up losing the game. Um, and you have Bruce's parents looking on happily about, oh, they're like brothers. It's so it's very nice, but you have just this mood of like something's off.
Yeah, something is
Yeah.
not right here. But yeah, we go back in. Thomas has completed the operation. Meanwhile, we go to a Daily Planet article about how Bruce Wayne is safe now. The mysterious trench-coated figure says, "We make war that we may live in peace." And he cuts through the newspaper article and cuts out
With a
Bruce's
batarang.
face. Yeah, with a batarang,
Yeah.
he cuts out Bruce's face,
Which
and
I
that's
think this might be when some readers thought like, ooh, I think I know what the twist is going to be
hmm.
on who
in
this
in
mysterious.
which case, what would you think as a reader at the time?
I probably wouldn't because I didn't
Interesting.
notice the batarang.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I was a bit
Um,
focused on the issue 3 cover because
yeah,
Uh,
it's a cool
yeah.
cover. I like it. It looks a lot like the one page from Origin though, doesn't it? Where he's with the Parademon.
yeah.
It looks like almost exactly like that. But
Well,
yeah,
again, that was when Jim Lee was doing everything, and
yeah, yeah,
they didn't give him the time to draw his stuff.
yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, moving on to Batman 610, The Beast. Batman is interrogating Killer Croc, who is now behind a glass cell, which I'm sure is safe.
at
Um,
Arkham.
and yeah, so we have these like guards trained on him. Batman, like it says in his inner monologue here, like he's counting on Croc to break out, pretty much.
Yeah, just like also just get to the bottom of like what's going on with Croc. Why did he need $10 million?
Hmm.
Uh, you know, uh, but and he baits him, and Croc, of course, breaks out as we bathe the pages in the red light, which
Looks so
is
nice.
such a good color effect.
Yeah.
Again,
Really
I
nice.
I don't think people actually talk enough about Sinclair as a colorist, but they should.
Yeah. Oh
Like
yeah, totally.
Oh yeah,
they're
Like
they really
always
work
so
well.
vibrant and always but they're always like vibrant, perfectly lit.
well,
It's just
like Jim Lee art would just not look the same without
No.
Sinclair's colors.
no, and
Yeah.
it's I mean I don't think has Lee ever worked with like other colorists really in like
I can't think of any off the top of my head, honestly.
He might have
Wait, no,
in
I
the
think
90s, I guess.
yeah, probably. But then there was I don't think he worked with Sinclair on the 2016 Suicide Squad run because Jim Lee did that. He did it for actually quite a while, if I remember correctly.
Oh, wow.
But I don't think he had Sinclair on that one.
weird not to have Sinclair. But
But yeah, yeah. So Croc breaks out. Watching all this is Amanda Waller.
Waller.
So history with Amanda Waller before this, Jacob.
Well, she was in God, what was she in that we read?
I don't. Was she in anything that we read? Oh, that's right. She was in Justice League.
Yeah, for like a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
she was talking to just Steve Trevor, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
obviously, I know her as the one in charge of the Suicide Squad. Also, like any politician, totally evil and ruthless, but
Yeah.
not in the supervillain way.
Yeah, it's
In the
great.
very human, I'm going to use you for my own ends way.
Yeah,
Uh,
and she's
yeah.
great.
Also, I love her dialogue. I don't need to remind you that the father of the boy that beast kidnapped is a personal friend of the president. So Joey told me going in who the president was at this time in the DC universe.
Yeah, because I guess it can take you kind of by surprise if you don't know already.
I mean, I'd like to say it's art imitating, predicting something in life, except Lex Luthor as president was almost a more, realistic idea than the last president of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Oh, how times change. But yeah, we went from that. We go over to Wayne Manor, and Alfred answers the door to see Thomas Elliot, who is very obviously like purposely drawn to have the big trench coat like the other like the mysterious figure has. Which I think like this should be the first indicator that like because Loeb is leaning into it so much, like it's not at least. Elliot isn't going to be the obvious answer here.
No, this isn't going to be this isn't going to be nearly as simple.
Despite the fact that like I think before you read the issue where the big thing happens to Elliot, I think it's issue 6, where like you still had him as like your number one guess.
Yeah, but even then I was like, can he be like? And then that thing happens, which we'll get to.
Yeah,
we'll get to because it's certainly interesting. I also just love the dialogue here. He calls Alfred Alf, which
and Alfred is just like it's just this very like dry response of like, yeah, just I understand.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's like I had forgotten your delightful penchant for calling me Alf, oddly enough. He tells Elliot, Bruce isn't home. He's going off in search of a lady, I believe. And he basically, the scene ends with just this great sort of double meaning of, as his surgeon and an old friend, tell him something for me. This is a dangerous game he is playing. This going out and about when he should be in bed, alone. Dangerous.
Another big hint, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. It's and then we go into our second flashback here, where we start to understand a bit more of like why Bruce and Thomas have a very close connection, and that is because Tommy's parents were in a car accident, or just the hang on 1 second. No, sorry, just the one was.
No, both of them were
They were both in the car, but only one of them doesn't. Yeah.
And he ran to the Wayne Manor to basically like, help my parents, please.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting,
which I do wonder, because I would say Tommy doesn't quite have any sort of villainous undertones yet. I think nothing like explicit yet. I think this is sort of almost meant to mirror the Father's Day thing from Long Halloween.
Oh, most definitely.
Where the Falcones come to Thomas's door and say, help my son, whatever. I think that's
the style also just the stylistically it also just brings to mind the flashbacks in Dark Victory as well.
Oh yeah.
Though not as much parallelism. But like the coloring here is also important. We start with just a gray monochrome. We shift to a purple, indicating sort of this childish hopefulness of, nothing bad's gonna happen.
And then Tommy makes Bruce swear that like nothing bad is gonna happen to his parents, and then Thomas Wayne comes out to deliver the bad news that
his mom is okay, but his dad is dead.
Yeah, and Tommy lashes out, punches Bruce, and I think it's just a scene that really hits. I think or it really like shows that it can be hard to like introduce a brand new character and say like, oh yeah, Bruce and Thomas have been like friends forever, but like it seems like this that you really need to like sell to your audience, like how close friends were they, like really like what is the history between these characters if I haven't known them this whole time.
And it's sold very well. Loeb is just great at making it work. But it's also
sorry, go ahead.
It's also interesting that where this flashback takes place. Like this is the third issue of 12. After this, we are a quarter of the way through, and we're still, unlike the other miniseries, we're still dealing with basically the fallout from one threat, the Killer Croc threat. And,
Yeah, and so far Batman isn't even aware of this figure that we have to figure out the identity of. Whereas compared to the other two miniseries, like, there was a killing in every single issue, so you have to be aware of that character the entire time.
Whereas this one, he's very much a background player. And I think it's also interesting that immediately when we go back to the present, the Batmobile is run off the road, just like Elliot's parents.
Yeah.
Ooh,
A tire is popped.
I hadn't noticed that before. Goddamn.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
That's great. So Batman is run off the road. He's chasing Croc down. Croc makes his way up to this greenhouse where Catwoman is. Croc makes his way in there, but Batman comes in to stop him. He saves Catwoman and fights Croc.
She's very much also the victim here because she's basically was under the influence of Poison Ivy.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some great fighting.
Mm-hmm.
But
Croc is stopped eventually. He's captured. He's flown away, and we see that mysterious figure standing there again. He says, "All men by nature desire knowledge."
I think Croc's actually flown away by Waller. So I don't know what the Suicide Squad was at this point, but maybe they just got themselves a Killer Croc.
Was this maybe not, because I think this might have been around the same time as the one that had Bane on the team.
That might have made him a bit redundant then.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I forget exactly when that team was. But moving on, interestingly, also this mysterious bandaged figure is standing next to a sign on top of this building that says Robbins.
Yeah.
Which is so great. Did you catch on to that when you were first reading it, Jacob?
I caught on. I was like, wait. I was like, that's. I didn't catch on to where it would lead, but I noticed like that's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Like, why is this just we're making maybe a reference to something or something bigger in the story? Because there's a reference later on to the Denny's on Adams.
Yeah. So it could just be like here's the name Robbins, it could just be that. But no, like I think everything in this book is absolutely 100% on purpose, and Loeb wouldn't lead you astray. I hope, at least.
But
so we end on this great scene. Catwoman meets up with Batman on a rooftop and basically says like what happened to her. Like Ivy had control of her. She thanks Batman for it all, and I mean it's Jeff Loeb writing Bruce and Sleep. It's perfect. It ends in a kiss, and it's
I love the final monologue of the issue. Of cowards by nature are cowardly and superstitious.
Cowards by nature.
I can read.
Criminals by nature are a cowardly and superstitious lot. To instill fear in their hearts, have become a bat, a monster in the night, and in doing so, have I become the very thing that all monsters become: alone. Fucking
Which, of course, he hasn't. Also, we get the information that Ivy's been in Metropolis.
Yes.
So we're issue 4 is moving us to the city.
Yes, this is now Batman's 611, the city. We're going over to Metropolis. I love these opening sequences here. First off, we're going to Metropolis. Did you know that like Superman would play a fairly big part in this, Jacob, or no?
I didn't. The first indication that he was in it was on reading the title page, because if Superman's going to show up in a DC comic trade, you get that Superman created by...
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Where they have to do that. Yeah.
Which is, it's important. I get why they do it.
But also would have been cool if Superman just, showed up. Yeah.
And I think I'm curious for Jamie. This issue might be where some of your issues might start at some point.
Sort of, yeah. This is where it starts to lose me a bit.
Okay.
I remember in the initial sort of Twitter thread where I said it would be really cool to have you on the podcast. was one of the things that was said. I don't think it was said by you, but whoever we
don't
were
think so.
talking to, this person had said that most of the book is just fan wank, and I wonder
Yeah,
if you share that sentiment at all.
not quite, but I do see what they meant.
Okay, I mean, I feel like because then I think I really wish I could remember who we were talking to, but I can't remember. Um, but I had said in sort of a rebuttal, I was like, well, like if we're talking about like the amount of characters used in it, that's Long Halloween, that's Dark Victory. It's sort of the same thing here. It's just uh, a large lineup of villains, and that's about it. And I think they had said something in response, sort of along the lines of like, like it's, at least they had a purpose there. And I really don't know like if there's something here to be said like about how the villains don't have as much a purpose, but I guess if you don't agree with that, then maybe we can't elaborate on it much. But
No, I do. Yeah, I think I do at least get where that's coming from. But
yeah,
a lot of
okay.
them sort of seem to be there just for the sake of it.
Mm. But yeah, moving on. Yeah, so we open the issue. We get some nice, like, sort of like three sequences right alongside each other, where it's Bruce first leaving for Metropolis. He runs into Thomas Elliot there. He's remembering the rest of the night when he kissed Catwoman from the last issue, and we also get a flashback alongside that of Bruce and Tommy visiting Metropolis as
For the
kids.
very first time,
Mhm.
which is very much it's a very interesting sort of like it feels very reflective of just something that I experienced as a kid, like going to Chicago for the first time, you know? Like sort of how big a big city actually seems. Uh, especially if you're American. I don't know, Jamie, if you get this because the UK cities are fairly different. Because
Don't really experience this now.
yeah, wait, because in the US, if you don't live in a city, everything is spread out like insanely. Like we have our infrastructure based around cars.
Yeah.
So this just hits some really interesting bits of nostalgia for me.
Mm.
Um,
All while having a fucking Alan Scott cameo.
yeah,
Yeah, that was nice.
Fucking legend. Fucking Jeff Loeb writes in a fucking Alan Scott Green Lantern cameo for Bruce and Tommy Elliott to see his kids. I love that. But yeah, so you see he's fighting who's he fighting? The Icicle. There's a villain called the Icicle. And that's
maybe
fun.
a villain from like way back in the 40s. I
Probably
think he
Was,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, I know in general, Jamie, you read a lot more like older stuff than I do. So I'm sure you would know. But
I
I
think
don't
he
know.
is, yeah.
Cool. Cool. But yeah, so moving on, we see like the rest of the scene between Bruce and Thomas in present day, and
they get locked in the hotel for the rest of their stay because they wandered off. Which, yeah, that's fair, but they're kids.
yeah.
Uh, but then in present day, I really like the way Bruce and Tommy's relationship is shown in present day. Like there isn't nearly as much sinister tension as there could have been, and I think that's
Mhm.
perhaps the right decision.
Yeah. But yeah,
Uh,
we see the rest of the Bruce Selena interaction. They both decide to go to Metropolis together. He gives her sort of a communicator, and oh yeah, and Catwoman says, oh, and if I find Ivy first, you're gonna have to wait your turn because Catwoman's really pissed at Ivy naturally. But yeah, so we go to the Daily Planet and we meet up with Lois Lane.
but before that,
Uh,
I think there's something a little interesting implied here that I think could make certain segments of Twitter blow up. Uh, Tommy saying, "I hope she's worth it." What? Who? The girl. I'm assuming it's a girl. Don't be so coy, Bruce. I know my conversation wasn't all that scintillating. Just interesting that the option is open for Bruce maybe not being out with a woman at some point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not sure if I mean,
I don't know if that's how he meant it.
Oh, I don't think it's how he meant it, but it's how
No.
it could be interpreted.
Yeah, true.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's a conversation to be had right here and now, especially in a story like this. But
Yeah.
I know the working theory by many people seems to be that Bruce Wayne is bisexual.
Yeah.
And
Which-
I suppose maybe a small part of him. I don't know. I never saw it.
I say it's an
personally.
interesting reading on the character.
It's
but
certainly
I
interesting.
see it, but then I might just be biased.
That's true. That's true. I don't know. I don't know if I see it. I think like I mean, that's not to say, of course, that like Bruce is like like hyper heterosexual or anything, but like like I've never seen Bruce show any interest in men at all. I don't know.
except in the Schumacher films.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. But maybe it's there. Who knows? I just never saw it personally. But now we go to the Daily Planet. Moving on.
And we have basically Jeff Loeb writing Dana Delaney as Lois Lane.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like that's. I don't love the opening joke.
I mean, it's. I mean, it's literally in reference to the story that she's writing, so there's that. But yeah, it's a bit of an odd line to open on, especially for Lois, I guess. But there's that.
Also, how many P's in therapist? Like, it doesn't sound like there should be more than one P in therapist.
If you're asking like how many letters there are in that word, I'd say like how many R's maybe,
Yeah.
possibly. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, moving on. So Bruce surprises her there, and you mentioned Dana Delaney, but they do sort of have a DC animated universe sort of relationship, the way Loeb writes it here, with Lois sort of flirting with Bruce the way she does. So that's fun. And also just Clark sort of like poking his head over from the one cubicle.
From one, and I mean this is clearly everybody knows everybody's secrets. At least Clark and Lois do.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. Would Lois know that Bruce is Batman here?
Maybe not that, but Bruce knows that Clark is Superman. Lois knows that Clark is Superman. Clark knows that Bruce is Batman. Lois is just maybe out of the loop on that one last bit.
Yeah. Bruce quickly like, goes over to the computer here and like talks to Oracle quickly, and just like gets on with it. We talk to Perry quick here. Just everybody loves Bruce. I love this. And like you just see like Clark getting just ever so jealous on the side. It's fun.
Actually, here's something that the chemist in me finds interesting. So, because they're talking about Croc's mutation, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this idea that to fix it, it requires ethylene, ethylene is very common. It's literally 2 carbons double bonded together with 4 hydrogens. Like,
Are you calling Jeff Loeb stupid, Jacob?
I am calling Jeff Loeb a poor chemist.
I don't think Jeff Loeb is a fucking chemist. I think he's a writer.
You could
but
have
Bruce-
made a
Bruce
fake chemical
Bruce
name.
literally says in the dialogue here, he says fairly common.
Yeah, it's like not the way they make it at LexCorp. Okay, then it's no longer ethylene. It's a different chemical.
Okay.
Sorry, look. I know it's a weird thing to get annoyed at.
It is a weird thing, Jacob. So
But
stop
I'm a
getting annoyed
chemist.
at it. All right, moving on. Yeah. So what is it? Bruce leaves after talking to Perry. We also get sort of a parallel on the opening sequence where Batman first arrives in the sewers. We see those panels sort of paralleled the way that Clark becomes Superman here.
Yeah. Well, I also love this first idea that we just kind of dropped over that Bruce owns the newspaper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of course he does.
Like, why do I have a feeling he bought it? Because like Lex Luthor was going to try to buy it, and was basically, nope, not having that.
Nope.
But
speaking of Lex, over at LexCorp Towers, Batman pays a visit to Lex's what? Now the now owner of LexCorp. Because Lex Luthor's off being the fucking president. The owner of LexCorp now happens to be Talia al Ghul, or Talia Head, as she is now known. Thoughts on that, Jacob? Because obviously, I mean, you know Talia.
So I know
from the animated
Talia.
Series.
I don't know. I didn't really expect her to be a businessman, but also like it kind of works for an assassin to enter business
Yeah.
Considering,
yeah.
you know.
Well, especially if she's like separating herself from Raish, that makes sense.
Yes, which is it's interesting that perhaps a lesser writer other than Loeb might have tried to denigrate Talia as a character, and
How so?
well, because you know, let's make Talia look like an idiot when we're trying to push Bruce hooking up with someone else,
Oh yeah, no, yeah, Loeb wouldn't fall into that. I'd say.
and Loeb is smart enough not to do that. Uh, Also, they refer to ethylene as a plant hormone. It's
Jacob,
not.
Jacob, you need to shut up. You need to shut the fuck up.
It's not, though.
Truth.
Okay, I don't like you right now, Jacob. Moving on. So so Bruce and Selena meet on a train. Literally on a train, like on
Right.
top of a train. Um, also interestingly here, like they're very open about the fact that like Bruce is very aware of Catwoman and Selena's being one person, but they pointed out a few times that like she just still doesn't know who he is.
Yeah, I think they also imply that like they've had sex before, but masks stayed on.
Yeah, which just gives me flashbacks to the early New 52 Catwoman, which has some weird cringy dialogue
Do I wanna know?
about such a thing. Yeah, it's pretty much just like someone trying to write erotic dialogue, but it just sounds really cringy. It's like the masks stay on. It's better that way, and it's like, what the fuck are you talking
That
about?
sounds like something
Come
the
on.
Harley Quinn show would make fun of.
It really is. I think wasn't that series written by a woman too?
Yes.
Uh,
Wait.
No, the New 52 Catwoman.
Oh, I don't know. That I don't know.
Might have been.
I have no idea.
But yeah, it's just funny. But yeah, so we go after Poison Ivy now. Catwoman and Batman sort of like corner her. Well, Catwoman does it first, at least. And Ivy's like wraps like the sort of like plant around Catwoman. Batman comes in to save her. But through that all, the what was it? The fucking building next to them starts, or is it under them? Yeah, under them. Sorry, the floor under them in the building starts coming up into the air, and Batman and Catwoman run away from it. They sort of, or sorry, Catwoman's knocked out by it. Batman jumps off the building, and from below that floor that has now risen into the air, Superman comes, obviously possessed by Poison Ivy, and saying, if you come near her, you'll have to go through me, and that's where the issue ends. So Superman is here. So what did you think of like this take on it, like Superman being possessed by Ivy?
This threw me. I'm like, okay, this is weird.
I imagine the sort of like possession would work the same way for Kryptonians, though. I don't think it's any different.
I think it's implied that later on that it is different, that she had to also use kryptonite.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Like
Mhm.
it's very specifically like, hey, she can't just do this.
You at least have to like weaken him first, I guess.
I will say, it leads to like perhaps my favorite Batman versus Superman just fight. Like,
oh yeah, like
anything.
I think, wasn't there a collection they released at one point, Jamie? I think you would know. Is it where they like collected all the greatest like Batman Superman fights in comics?
Probably around the time of like Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
And I think I think the cover of this next issue was the cover of it. And
yeah, I think it did. Yeah.
So actually, Jamie, since you're our guest, what do you have opinions on how Batman and Superman's relationship should be portrayed?
I guess specifically also like how it's done here, I guess.
I think it's done well here. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because I'm gonna say it. While the fight in Dark Knight Returns works for the Dark Knight Returns, it also doesn't fully work.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, this should be something that is normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also the fight in the Dark Knight Returns is clearly also Clark holding back. Like right now he's in a position where he is not really holding back, and Bruce has genuine reason to be scared of his power.
Yes. Also, the art in this one's just better. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah, it's are we really trying to compare Frank Miller and Jim Lee as artists? Come on.
I mean, more people have probably read Frank Miller than Jim Lee.
Yeah. Anyway, so we go on to Batman 612, The Battle. We open up here. So Catwoman comes to. Superman immediately goes straight to lasering the fuck out of them. They jump
Uh,
away. They land in some water.
I love how the internal monologue opens with Metropolis. I hate this city.
It's great. And to say that Bruce should have a more like when we talk about like how we should be writing the Batman Superman dynamic, to say that Bruce has a disdain for Superman and Metropolis, I don't think it's to be disingenuous, and to exaggerate those features, I don't think it's to be disingenuous either. I think where one could steer wrong is like, to actively like have Bruce say these things in his head like to Clark's face,
Yeah.
Also,
that's where this would be wrong.
Also, it's just the fact that he's clearly like, oh shit, now I have to fight my friend.
Yeah.
Also, I love how this is a fight where Batman technically doesn't win. Like, he's not winning on his own because Superman.
He's just good at getting away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he basically barrels Catwoman away from Superman's heat vision eyes. And Ivy just is like, no, you have to follow them. You have to get them. But yeah, they make it into the water. Ivy monologues just about how she wants him to kill Batman. He won't because it's like, I can't kill, but you already have. My plants are my children. I don't think the portrayal of Ivy here is the most three-dimensional. I think we probably got.
Not really.
I think we get more interesting portrayals more recently. Not necessarily when they make her an anti-hero, but when they actually let's examine who she is as a character and see how kind of her specific like gimmick has kind of evolved since the 1960s.
I think the greatest portrayal of Poison I've ever seen is just in Arkham Knight. Like, I know you don't know anything about that, Jacob. Jamie, do you know anything about Arkham Knight? How she's portrayed there?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Just her arc in that whole game is fucking fantastic, and yeah, I'd highly recommend it. But yeah, Batman and Catwoman make their way into the sewers. They're running their way through here. Interesting that there's a little LexCorp logo here that like just Lex like owns the entire city pretty much.
He owns everything.
Also, because they're LexCorp tunnels and sewers, like they're lead lined. So that's a huge advantage that Bruce has here. But another huge advantage that Bruce has here is a kryptonite ring. And that's where we get our title page here, the battle, chapter 5.
And I imagine this is the kryptonite that Clark gave to him.
Well, they say at the end, it's like, yeah, Clark trusted Bruce with this. Like, it's the same kryptonite, I would imagine.
Which I love as an idea, right? Like that, like if Superman, it's part of why Superman could never actually go bad.
Well, I mean, this is that situation, This is that situation where Superman does go bad,
but he's
not choosing to.
Yeah, but this is. I'm trying to say when Superman could actively go evil, decide to like go evil, then he wouldn't really be Superman. Now I know Injustice does evil Superman,
and they actually do it really well.
I will reserve my judgment until I actually read.
We're gonna read it.
I know you're gonna make me read it because you love it
at some point. It's Tom Taylor, Jacob. Come on.
I haven't read Tom Taylor,
but you know he's great.
I know he's great. He has a great.
He's great. Come on. But yeah. So anyway, we sort of like laid these bat bombs around the tunnels. Clark is sort of just smashing through the tunnels. He makes his way through there. We had a great 2-page spread here where Batman punches him in the face with the kryptonite ring.
I love the details of just the leaves to always keep in the mind of the reader that yes, this is a hypnotized Clark.
Yeah. Also here, this is where the potentially dividing bit of inner monologue comes in. Bruce says in his inner monologue, he says, all at once, I'm 10 years old, looking up in the Metropolis skyline with Tommy Elliott. Green Lantern is fighting the Icicle, and Tommy tells me the Icicle can't win. If you want to beat your opponent, Bruce, you have to think like your opponent. If Clark wanted to, he could use his super speed and squish me into the cement. But I know how he thinks. Even more than the kryptonite, he's got one big weakness. Deep down, Clark's essentially a good person, and deep down, I'm not. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
This is the one. I think I would say I could hand wave this by just saying, okay, it's the same thing as we talked about before. This is what Bruce tells himself. I don't think he actually thinks he's a bad person.
No, I think I think he thinks he's a bad person when he's actually not. I don't think it's just an act.
Yeah,
because he does immediately in this issue send Catwoman to put someone Superman loves in danger, and it's Lois.
Yeah, and that's not something like that's something that like Bruce does that where he tells himself, okay, this is not a good thing. This is not something a good person would do. I wouldn't actively put a civilian's life in danger if I thought that was the right thing to do.
I think it only can work here because Loeb specifically just does it. One specifically just does it once, and does it in such a calculated way that you can see as you're reading the exact steps Bruce is taking.
And also in this case beforehand, like Loeb has proven time and again that he understands Bruce's character.
Yes.
Like he's not just writing that inner monologue out of nowhere. Like he knows what he's writing, I would say.
Yeah.
He also understands Superman because I think he did 12 seasons before this.
Yes, I'm curious, Jamie, if this was where it starts to fall apart for you.
Sort of.
Sort of.
It's not until another chapter or so that it loses fully, I think.
Okay.
Well, so overall, though, like decent story though up to this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
I also think because I've seen criticisms of this fight, as kind of that Bruce goes too far. I don't really think he does because I think he knows very much what's going to happen.
I mean, I don't want to start this war, but if we're talking about a fight between Batman and Superman fucking wins. That's why throughout this fight Batman is running. But what Batman does have on Superman is that he's infinitely smarter. He's one of the smartest characters in the DC universe. Bruce Wayne is a fucking genius. He knows that if he throws Lois Lane off a fucking building, Superman will break through that conditioning and will save her.
Yes. But yeah, he leads Clark to a gas main, gets him stunned, gets him out of the sewers. Clark picks up a fucking car to do another Action Comics #1 homage.
And he almost gets away with it too, until Catwoman throws Lois off a building.
Yes, come on, Clark, be the Boy Scout.
And Clark, of course, does. He goes after Lois.
As she's falling.
Yeah. I also really like the Catwoman Lois dialogue leading up to that.
Yeah,
Catwoman's like, "Hold still, you're not very good at the whole good at the damsel in distress thing."
I think I'd argue that post-crisis Lois isn't really nearly as much of a damsel as say pre-crisis Lois. Also, because I recently read the Superman stories from the first 2 issues of Action Comics, she was still kind of proactive there, and that was kind of interesting. Because that was the 30s.
I've actually never read early Action Comics.
The first two Superman stories are actually really fun. It's Superman basically taking down a dictatorship.
Wow.
Yeah,
hey, good for him.
Who says comics aren't political?
Exactly. Come on. But I digress. So saves Lois.
I've got you. Hi, honey, you're home. Clark, no offense, but you look like hell. And I love that. That's he's the best at what he does. And then the 4 characters regroup, and this entire page is delightful.
Oh yeah.
And it's they're trying to work out who's behind things. And then they eventually find Poison Ivy at the place that Tommy and Bruce stayed as children. Another little thing to just implant that deeper into your mind that it's gonna be Tommy Elliott who's in the trench coat.
Mm-hmm. Also, my fucking god, Crypto the Super Dog appears.
Yes.
I'm so fucking happy about that. He's there for 3 panels. That's it. But that's all I need. Four panels because he starts fucking playing with Catwoman afterwards, and that makes me so happy.
Yes.
But anyways, so the apprehend Ivy, Catwoman gets like one last little punch in there even after she's apprehended, and Superman goes, "Catwoman, was that really necessary?" At which point Bruce and Selina both look at each other and simultaneously say yes.
Say yes.
That's a nice bit, yeah.
I love that.
We get the explanation of, I only told her that you care about the people who work at the Daily Planet. She had 3 choices: Lois, Jimmy Olsen, or even Perry White. Catwoman picked Lois. I love an alternate universe where he picks Jimmy.
Right? Would Clark break through the conditioning for Jimmy Olsen?
I think he would.
I think he would. I agree.
As long as it's like not the Jimmy from the Superman Doomsday movie. Because that Jimmy's just an asshole.
Oh my god, Jamie, have you ever seen that? The Superman Doomsday movie?
I haven't.
Oh, it's fucking awful. If you want just a good laugh, it's so fucking funny.
There's you want to talk about gay subtext.
There's Jimmy Olsen's gay subtext. There's pedophile Toy Man.
There's Lex Luthor's gay subtext.
Yes, some mega gay Lex Luthor subtext. Played by James
Marsters.
James Marsters from Torchwood, Buffy, I guess. It's him, and fucking Tom Kenny plays like a little assistant robot around the Fortress of Solitude, and he has like all the worst dialogue in it, but it's Tom Kenny, so it's really fun to listen to.
It's not a good film.
There's a bit that I fucking die laughing at. I've seen the movie twice in my life, but it always catches me off guard, and it will not anymore. This Kryptonian robot walks up behind Superman as he's working at a computer, and the robot, played by Tom Kenny, goes, "Have you cured cancer yet, Kal-El?" And that's his first line in the whole thing, and it's fucking amazing. But anyway, back to Hush. So Superman and Batman part ways. I
like the band with what are friends for?
As the trench-coated figure looks on and says, "What are friends for?" And also just something you can see here, because I'm not sure if we've ever encountered this before, Jacob, where collected editions cut out next time in the next issue this happens, whatever. You can very clearly see where that's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's really. I'm surprised. It seems like on older comics they keep it.
No, that's a thing that's like still in comics today.
But for like older collected editions of older comimies, they keep it.
It's probably more of a novelty thing, I guess.
Yeah, but like they probably should keep it here, like.
Because it just looks really awkward with all that white space there.
People understand that this is a comic.
Yeah,
you
don't need to be like, okay, take it seriously and read it with the giant white space there.
Yes.
It's like, fuck off, come on.
Anyway,
Batman 613, the opera, and
my
I know
favorite
you commented.
Cover.
Yeah, I was gonna say you commented on the cover when you were about to read this because it looks fantastic. And this is also, I think, probably my favorite issue of the whole collection. Probably, maybe. Because I think I kind of hate that I just said that, because I think this is where JV says that it drops off for him.
Yeah.
So that's fun. That's gonna be fun. I love this issue. All right, so we're at the opera. We're at the Gotham City Opera House. Bruce has a night planned here. He's supposed to be here with Tommy, and they're supposed to have like pretty much like plus ones. And Alfred and Selina Kyle will be joining you. Bruce didn't know this before. And
Alfred's being a dad, basically.
Yep.
And do try to make it at least until the intermission.
Also, interestingly here, who comes along with Bruce, Thomas, and Selina is Leslie Grace.
Leslie Tompkins.
Leslie Grace. Jesus Christ. Okay, we just recorded a video that you guys haven't seen yet. We're talking about the Batgirl thing. Fuck me. Oh my god, it's been a long week. Leslie Tompkins. I said Leslie Grace. Fuck me. Jesus Christ. Release the Batgirl movie, whatever. I'm falling back on that. God damn it. I hate everything.
Neither of us can apparently read today, can we?
We can't. Well, see, you at least were actually yours I guess is more embarrassing because you were actually reading from the comic.
Yes, I was reading and
I just said the first Leslie that came to my brain. Moving on. So they take their seats in the opera, and
Everybody is dressed fabulously. It's a production of Pagliacci.
Jacob,
So,
am I gonna want to kill you again in the next couple
oh no,
seconds?
this is the thing with this crying clown that everybody knows. Like,
Isn't it also the thing with does that have any correlation to the Cesar Romero Joker appearance that everybody references, or no?
maybe, I don't know.
Well, because you know how he's like wearing like the crying clown mask before like his first appearance.
Oh, very possibly, yeah. But
Hmm.
like, it's obvious that if Harley Quinn and the Joker are going to rate an opera, it would be this opera because the
Yeah,
opera's about a clown.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also just like the faux lyrics that Harley has. Like I've run out of Rice Krispies. And then she rips off the costume, yelling opera schmopera, and it's just great. I don't know. It's great fun. Also, just leading into one of the most interestingly spread out 2 pages that I've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
Like the way just these panels play around with each other is just so much fun.
yeah. I can't tell. I wonder if it was meant. This was originally laid out in the comic, like single issue itself, to be a page turn.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Like it doesn't feel like it's meant to be a 2-page spread.
Oh yeah, no, it's not. Yeah,
No.
because the panels don't actually line up.
Yeah. Which I think again is interesting. I think it's interesting to say how Harley is portrayed here. Because if there's one villain that I think Loeb doesn't do as good a job of as he could, it's Harley Quinn.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
Now, this is still the early 2000s. This is what, 2003? So
2002.
2002.
Yeah.
So you definitely have like you don't necessarily have the
Harley Quinn as a character is only 10 years old at this
yeah
point. You know?
Yeah.
and
And she realistically hasn't had many mainline comic appearances.
I
no
think she's only been around for about 3 years at this point.
Mhm.
yeah and it doesn't help that as a character if this is post that one piece of Alex Ross art
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which is,
like
let's be fair, it is a great piece of art.
oh
and
I
it's,
love the
like,
art
when
people
see
just
that piece of art and are like, that's Harley and Joker, you know?
and
It's like,
nobody knows how to actually interpret that art
yeah.
because the Harley Joker relationship was never meant to be healthy and it feels almost like Loeb kind of is leaning into the fact that it is an actual relationship and not just someone being
Yeah,
used.
but also as far as like mainline Harley goes, like she's still really obsessed
Yes.
with the Joker at this point,
Yes.
and isn't doing much outside of his interest, I would say. So,
Yes. But she does get some amazing lines here.
oh yeah, yeah,
Like they reference Snagglepuss.
yeah, but Leslie at one point goes, "Please take whatever you want, just don't hurt anyone." And Harley's like, "Yeah, yeah, blah blah. You're kidding, right? I ain't bargain hunting, lady." Like, it's great. But she like robs everybody there. She takes this little like piece of handmade jewelry from Tommy, which we get the backstory of in a flashback. We see that it's just a little piece that
His
that
mother gave him.
mother gave him. And it's like a little like green ring on a chain there.
Which I don't think it actually has any real significance.
Well,
Other than
unless it's meant to, unless Tommy was just like so happy about like seeing Green Lantern, maybe that his mom got him that.
maybe, but
That's possible.
it's a very sweet little thing of it's what he remembers his mother by, and there's the tragedy.
Mhm.
Like he gets like Bruce takes it as kids, and he gets very angry.
And then we also get the connection of Tommy and Bruce's childhood tragedies being related to jewelry in their mind, and it's like, okay, there's
Yes.
that. So you draw that parallel. But move on. Harley takes that piece. She jumps away with it, and Tommy decides to go after Harley himself. Then, also we get a great little bit here where like Leslie is very clearly aware of Selina's dual identity. I like that.
Yes. And I think is she aware of Bruce's?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Like,
Leslie's
gotta
always
be
been aware. Yeah,
aware
but
of
yeah,
Bruce's.
yeah, she's always aware of Bruce's. We get a great 2-page spread of Batman going after Harley.
So good, in fact, that it gets used on my edition as the title page.
Yeah, I think that's Yeah, that's my addition too. I think I have the same one.
He's not mine.
Do you have the what edition do you have actually?
I think it was called the Complete Hush.
So you must have like an older. What does yours cover look like?
It's
Is it sort of like that group shot with like the
Yeah.
greens?
yeah.
Ours is just a full-on Two-Face style.
Oh,
Bruce on one half of the face, Hush on the other half. Or at least that's mine. I think Joey, you're also reading from this edition.
Yeah, I'm reading from that edition too. Yeah,
because this is a book that they've republished many times.
and they're about to republish again.
Yes.
Are they?
Yeah,
like
they are. Yeah, it's using the one Batman Catwoman cover where they're together. But, they're republishing it again. And it's like fucking why? Like,
well, it's Batman, so it sells. Also, if we're talking about republishing, and republish Jason Todd's initial post-crisis adventures, cowards.
They're not going to.
Yeah, but I would like to read them. I'm curious. But yeah, I love how it's like, my big opening night, and look who's trying to upstage me. And I love how Bruce is just like, releasing smoke into the crowd just to keep the crowd safe. And this is the first point where you really get the sense that everything has been scripted up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
From all the villains.
Oh yeah, because even Harley says like, decided to go like off script, are you? And like, maybe I should go off book and blow your brains out and end it right now. But then Catwoman comes in. Selena has changed, and she kicks Harley. But Harley,
badly conceived, badly acted, badly staged. The audience actually wants their money back.
And so they all run out of here. Then
Harley.
Catwoman, Harley shoots Catwoman, and Catwoman falls off the one piece of scenery. Batman catches her, and then like the audience thinks it's part of the show.
Well, but they also have Harley saying "Heavens to Murgatroyd," exit stage left, which is definitely a reference. I don't know how many people in the 21st century are going to get that reference.
I don't know if I get that reference.
It's the reference to Snagglepuss.
Yeah, sorry. I got
so you like Yogi Bear, the old Hanna-Barbera.
Jacob, you should just stop right now.
Okay, I will. Okay.
So catches Catwoman. Audience thinks it's part of the show. Catwoman passes out. And Leslie says that she's going to take care of Catwoman. Batman goes after Harley and Tommy. Tommy is still chasing Harley.
Leslie's there to nurse Selena back to health.
But Harley and Tommy run outside. Batman is just a little bit behind them. He hears a gunshot. He runs out there and sees the Joker laughing, standing over or kneeling over the body of Thomas Elliot. Joker says, "That's how you make an entrance." And it ends on the best fucking line, which is a parallel to a bit of a inner monologue that Bruce had earlier, where he says, "There was something about the opera, how they often ended in tragedy, that my father found it." And I love that. It's so fucking good.
It's at this point where my brain was just like, so Hush isn't Thomas Elliot. He can't.
Yeah, I think if I could find the messages, I would love to find the messages, because it was so funny. Because I swear, just before that happened, as you were messaging me about it, you had just said, "Okay, so I'm pretty sure Tommy is Hush,"
which is very much like, yeah, that's very much something that I would say. And then, obviously, it can't be, because he's dead.
Oh, here we go. Here you go. Okay, so not long before you read this, you go... Hang on. I just had it. Hang on. Fuck, I'm so mad I can't find this now. I just had it. So after all that, you go, well, fuck, Tommy's dead. Like there goes my one suspect.
Yeah. Which is because he's our one suspect.
Also, in these messages, you have the message: Harley Quinn's greatest crime, a distaste of opera.
Yes.
So anyway, we move on to Batman 614, The Joke. And this is where I'm curious. So since you didn't know what the connection to Jason Todd was going in, Jacob, did you think this was it? This whole issue?
I thought it might be like, because it opens. We reflect, like we do those great flashbacks of flashback to the Killing Joke, flashback to whatever the story is,
killing Sarah. That's No Man's Land.
Yeah.
And then we see him killing Jason, and now we see him killing Tommy. Like pretty much what Loeb is portraying it as is like there's just the straw that broke the camel's back. Like killing Tommy, that was it. He has lost too much at this point, and Batman is straight up ready to kill Joker here.
Yes. And he's stop me if you've heard this one before, Batman. I'm innocent.
It's so good. And also behind this, I don't know if you caught this on your first read, Jacob, but as Batman has like Joker in a death grip, Harley is behind Joker as he's trying to tell him that he's innocent. Harley is like shushing Joker behind him, and I really like that because Joker's about to like spoil the game almost.
Yeah, could very easily give everything away here.
Yeah.
Now, I'm interested because I think this is the most different that Loeb has actually portrayed the Joker. From
Joker barely says anything in this issue.
No,
he has a total of 10 lines, maybe.
Like Harley is the star of the show.
Yeah,
which is again interesting. And I love
do we think, or is it possible that Bruce is out of character here?
Yeah.
Jamie.
Elaborate on that, Jamie.
I feel like it's realistic that after all the other things that have shown happen, this would be the one that makes him completely snap.
So
I suppose, though, in the way that Loeb is portraying it, because he's building up Tommy as this lifelong friend, and the person that out of the killings that they show in this montage here, that Tommy is the one that Bruce has known the longest.
That's true.
Well, I think it might also be interesting because let's go back to our very second episode. Is this Loeb's riff on the Killing Joke, and what might make the interpretation of Batman killing the Joker in the rain on a dark night after some tragedy a thing that happens? I kind of disagree. I still think that if anything was to write out the Joker completely, it probably should have been Death in the Family, where he literally killed Robin.
Yeah. But also keep in mind here, like within this issue, Batman is fairly easily pulled back from actually doing the deed. But also, spoilers, Jim Gordon's about to enter the scene. But if Jim Gordon wasn't there, would we be able to pull Bruce back from this? And if so, how would that have turned out?
I think if Oracle was there, you could pull Bruce back from it. I think if Selina entered, she could pull Bruce back from it.
And she does enter, actually.
Yes.
So you don't think it's so much a matter of the fact that Jim is there, just as long as somebody is there to remind Bruce why he doesn't do
I think using Jim,
and it could have been a plethora of people, I guess is what you're saying.
But I think using Jim is also a very deliberate choice on Loeb's part.
Well, because they even call out that like if anyone, Jim is the one that Joker's hurt the most.
Yes.
Because
we have just this beautiful flashback in that watercolor style of Barbara as Batgirl, which I don't know if all the Batgirl costumes for Barbara use her flowing hair. I hope they do.
At the very least, most of them do.
Because it's such a good look for the character.
I think back in the old Kate Kane versions of the character, they didn't do it. But with Barbara, I think there's always been the hair there.
Yeah, but the Kate Kane version had a hyphen, so that wasn't really,
That's not really that.
That's not really that. I say that, but watch me love whenever
you want to split hairs like that? Fine, fuck off.
I'm being facetious, Joey. Watch Me Love Kate Kane is Wait, or is it Kathy? Whichever Kane was the original Batgirl.
Yeah,
And-
that would be Kate. Or is it, oh fuck! Now you're making me question it.
Yeah,
Jamie?
wait, because isn't Kate Batwoman with also
Well, I
red
mean,
hair?
they're aren't they? They're technically the same name.
Isn't one of them Kathy though?
Batwoman's Kathy, and the newer Batwoman is Kate.
Okay. So
Okay,
the original would be Kathy then, right?
Maybe?
So,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's
This
fucking. The point being, the old one isn't canon anymore. Anyway.
except unless you're Grant Morrison, then everything is canon.
Yeah, fucking Zuranar is canon. So so anyway, so yeah, so we get a nice little flashback there. We see Barbara shot by Joker again. We see Oracle there in the clock tower.
I love the idea of Oracle working from a clock tower. There's something fascinating just about that image. Like,
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
like, because this is the first book where we're really having any presence of Barbara as Oracle. Yeah, because New 52 undoes it. And then,
yeah, but Catwoman comes in and tries to stop him. Batman is not having any of that. We get some flashes of the death of Jason Todd, and
again, a brutal interpretation of the death of Jason Todd.
mhm.
From Jim Lee.
Another one that conveniently omits his mother.
Again,
I mean, to be fair, like I'm not saying that like they should have included every character for these couple panels here,
no,
but like
but
it's just like it's just another
at
long
least,
line.
At least it's implied that like that story happened as it did with the ambassador stuff and all, and his mother. The mother stuff is the good stuff.
Yeah.
Just not the ambassador stuff. We don't need that.
But yeah, so Batman he even punches Selina's wound to like incapacitate her and like put her to the side.
We get like a I love the way this like possible flash forward is just this scratchy vision of the future.
Mm-hmm. And you see Joker on the wall there.
Yeah,
it's cool. But yeah, so he goes back over to Joker because he still wants to fucking murder this guy. And who is the one that actually pulls Batman back from it all? But of course, it's Jim Gordon, the one that has lost the most here. Batman even says it in his inner monologue. You know, it's Jim Gordon with all he's lost. I thought he'd understand. So again, is Bruce out of character here? I don't think so, but I want to bring up this discussion.
I think he's definitely being blinded by rage.
Yeah.
Way too much.
Yeah.
And especially since it has gone very far at this point. Because he's trying to kill the Joker at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that rage blinding him is sort of it's possibly the first sign that the actual torture of this entire story arc is really starting to get to him.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps causing him to act out of character as an intentional choice. Because I can see where someone would say he's out of character. I think it works for the story, but should definitely not be like where the character generally goes.
Yeah. Like I don't think every situation calls for like Joker killing somebody and Batman being so enraged by it that he almost kills the Joker.
Yes.
And the fact that it hasn't been done so much, I think, is what makes this version work.
Yes. And I imagine
because it is worth noting in all of the examples that they bring up here, the only other one where they go that far is Killing Joke.
Yes. Well, I also think, I'm guessing, Jamie, this is where it really starts to lose you.
Yeah. Yes.
So you reread this obviously, but before this episode.
Yeah.
And you said it was and you said it was you perhaps enjoyed it. You said you enjoyed it more this second time.
Yeah, I think because this reread I actually enjoyed the first half a bit more, but yeah.
Oh, so before this, you didn't enjoy like any of it.
The in my last read before this, I just found it all a bit meh.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
do wonder if our reading of it, Jacob, is potentially enhanced by knowing the other Loeb stuff.
Maybe. I still think, Jamie, you should at least give Long Halloween a try.
Yeah.
Because it's iconic.
Yeah.
It's the definitive Two-Face origin story, basically. And it's inspired no less than 2 live-action Batman films in a lot of ways. Probably even more, because you could argue Batman Begins a little bit, but mainly The Dark Knight and The Batman. Yeah, so this issue is the turning point of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Especially because after Jim Gordon pulls Batman back from all this, we see the bandaged figure watching from overhead as they all walk away, and says he is innocent. Get the joke? As he flips a coin and it lands on it's a double-headed coin and one of the sides is scratched up, and obviously the implication they want you to draw there is that it's Two-Face to some degree. Did you fall for that at all, Jacob? I mean, technically it's correct.
I did, because I was just like, okay, what the fuck is going on now?
Yeah, if we got rid of the most likely suspect, who else is there? So there's that, and I think it's a great little like almost sort of fake out there. Especially with where this next issue ends. I'm very interested to hear what you think of this. So
I wonder, because this was originally collected as 2 separate volumes.
Yeah,
I'm wondering
I wonder if the split was between 6 and 7 or 7 and 8.
7 and 8, yeah. Because I could make an argument for either.
Because I mean, on one hand, the Joker thing is a great cliffhanger, but also if the last thing in your first volume is like, let's add the element of maybe it's Harvey Dent, that could be
that could also be great. And then the issue 8 cover happens, and I'm just excited.
Oh yeah, because Jeff Loeb's about to write grown up Dick Grayson, and you already love him writing kid Dick Grayson. So,
God, he writes. Dark Victory is so underrated. Like,
it is.
Nobody talks about it. Dark Victory, I will say, is still my favorite of the Jeff Loeb 12-issue miniseries.
Oh, I thought you said it might have been this.
On reflection, I think Dark Victory just edges it slightly.
Okay, so close second with this one?
Yeah, a very close second. Like,
gotcha.
Neck and neck.
All right, on to Batman 615, the Dead. I also just want to point out, not that it's really worth mentioning, but this comic cover was used on a Father's Day card I saw recently.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I saw this cover on a Father's Day card recently, which first off is cool because Nightwing and everyday marketing, and that's nice. Also really nice because Bruce is Dick's father. That's just the way it is. But also, what?
But also what? Like it fits.
Yeah. I just think it's weird. I don't know. Just okay, yeah, sure. Happy Father's Day. Here's an orphan. I don't know. Anyway, so we open this issue on Thomas Elliott's funeral. And it's just a great sequence. I really like it.
Of the last 2 funerals that have popped up in comics, this is clearly the better one. Like, it clearly conveys the emotions better.
What's the other one we did?
Remember how in Death in the Family issue, in the 3rd issue, there's a funeral scene?
Fuck off! Come on, we don't need it. That doesn't count. That's not a fucking funeral. That's a panel. That's a single panel.
Yes. Just a reminder. This is how you do a funeral.
Yeah, just so you know, Jim Starlin.
Jim Starlin.
Anyway, so yeah, funeral. We get some nice little last couple flashbacks on presumably what is the last time we'll see Thomas Elliott.
Pretty much all the Bat family is there. Like, you have Lucius Fox there. Dick and Tim are both there. My brain was like, I'm surprised Damian's not there. Then I remembered he doesn't exist yet.
Damian's not a thing yet. I mean, technically, if we're talking from a continuity perspective, he does exist, but I mean, he's not around yet.
He's not around. Also, he doesn't exist yet, technically.
Well, yeah, but like he's alive at the.
Yeah.
That's a
If
retcon.
we're talking like these, if we're talking about like Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul as real people, like Damien's a person, he
Damien's a
exists.
person, sure.
He's there. Yeah,
He's just in the shadows of all the like scenes with Talia in this comic, like drawn in retroactively.
yeah. But yeah, so Bruce has a very nice little speech here for Tommy. He puts the little toy soldier from their game on his coffin, and they lower Tommy and
He quotes "Oh Captain, my Captain," which is a beautiful poem and is very fitting. I love Selina being like just kind of cynical.
yeah.
Um,
But then we go to the Batcave for one of my favorite scenes in the whole thing. Like I fucking adore this scene. We have just Bruce analyzing over and over again what happened to Thomas Elliot. Just analyzing his body over and over again, just repeating the exact same recording over and over and over and over and over until Dick Grayson arrives to just sort of get him out of like his depressive state, only to find that Bruce technically isn't in a depressive state, because Bruce has something else now. Bruce Catwoman is Dick realizes that Catwoman is like more and more a part of his life, and Dick sees that this has had a positive effect on Bruce.
Yes.
I love the Nightwing design they go with.
Oh yeah, it's
I love
and
that
also
they have the
it's
stripe
just
go all the way
so.
down onto the
Yeah.
hands.
Oh yeah, that's always nice. But yeah, so like Dick sees it like the positive effect that Selina's had on Bruce lately. Like, to the point where like Bruce even says like if detective work were easy, everyone would be doing it. And Dick goes, "Was that humor?" And it's just like it's fun. They have
Now I am worried about you.
Yeah, they have a really great dynamic, and I love the way Loeb writes it. And this is all cut off by Oracle coming in and saying that Riddler has hijacked an armored truck with 11 million in cash on board. He left a note. What is it that has 4 wheels, costs $11 million, and flies? And so Bruce says we'll take the car. Get a great 2-page spread with 2 sentences on it, 3 words in total, just for Jim Lee to draw a bunch of Batmobiles, and it's fucking great. Like
on several rotating like Ferris wheel thingies.
it's great.
I want shit like this in comic book movies, please. Can we go all out with the crazy? Like
yeah, oh yeah, I love it. But also curious, based on the less than stellar riddle that Riddler left on his note there, were you tipped off at all that something wasn't right there, or didn't you think much of it?
I just thought maybe Jeff Loeb couldn't think of a good riddle.
Okay, so you were like so you were like a little thrown by it.
Yeah, I was. I didn't think anything of it, like really, other than it's possibly just an excuse to get us to the next, just move the issue along. Because I mean, obviously, like the answer to the riddle is Air Force One, or I think as it's referred to, like Lex Force One, because Lex Luthor is the president,
and like then we have like the best scene ever. Like again, Loeb just nails the Bruce Dick dynamic. Just this whole thing about like Dick saying like he's like, hey, you should just tell Catwoman your secret. Like she probably already knows. Like just tell her. It's probably none of my damn business, but whatever. And like Bruce goes, you're right. And he's like, oh really? It is none of your damn business. And it's just it's fun. It's a really fun dynamic.
And then Oracle comes in with I've already mentioned it. The Riddler just passed the Denny's on Adams. If you turn left on 2nd Avenue. I love it. It's so clever.
Yeah.
I always like when you do that.
Yeah. Typically the joke is like Adams and O'Neill is what they usually do. It's like turning the corner on Adams and O'Neill. It's like, okay, there's that. But that one's a little bit different. I like that.
Yeah. I also love just how smug the Riddler looks.
Oh yeah. But we get a fairly basic like fight sequence just to get them out of this. We stop the truck. Nightwing and Batman both come in and stop Riddler. That's all it is. It's nothing crazy.
Well, we get some great internal monologue from Bruce. Through the years, I've debated whether or not it was fair of me to take him in, train him. But I've learned that Dick wasn't like me. He didn't come from a world of privilege. He was a performer, gifted in that way. And well, at the time, from the transition from Robin to Nightwing was difficult for both of us. It was a day I had long prepared myself for because Dick was born to be in the center ring. I think it's interesting to even bring up Dick's background as not coming from a place of privilege,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's
Despite the
also
fact that the Flying Graysons are popular, were popular.
were popular.
Um,
They were still circus performers. Like
yeah, yeah.
they traveled the country. They probably weren't paid all that well, because it's a circus. They don't really pay the circus all that well. And it's especially interesting because the first two Robins didn't come from a place of privilege. Like
Mhm.
Jason Todd was a poor kid living in Crime Alley. The first Robin who was kind of rich was Tim Drake,
Mhm.
which again just interesting. Just interesting, an interesting reflection that I wish we kind of got more of, just in general, uh, especially since there's this weird public perception of Batman that he doesn't use his privilege to help people.
Yeah.
Like what is it? Once a month, there's always someone like, "Oh, Batman is just a rich dude who beats up mentally ill people," and I'm
Yeah,
like,
and it's like that's not accurate.
that's mostly reductive.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's a thing. Anyway, the Riddler escapes into the sewers.
And walks out and is laughing away, and Batman is there to greet him, to put him away, and that's all that is. Um yeah, so meanwhile they investigate inside the truck. They see some traces in there, some handprints. Batman says, I've seen the substance before, ash from the Lazarus pit. So obviously we're setting up for Raish here, but not before we have like such a great last two scenes played side by side here, to end off the
Yeah.
issue.
One at Arkham, one at the Gotham City Zoo cat house.
In Arkham, Joker is being visited by the bandaged figure in the trench coat, who takes off his bandages to reveal that he is a bald, reformed Harvey Dent, who's had plastic surgery and now looks normal, a la Dark Knight Returns, and it looks like Harvey Dent if he were bald.
Yes.
Um, and
I'm
it,
going to finish the job I set out to do as district attorney when the law was on my side.
and then over in the Gotham City Zoo, Batman does it. He takes off his mask and reveals to Selena Kyle that he's indeed Bruce Wayne, and it's such a great scene. I love it. Like, I love these two scenes played side by side, but also as you know, as a big fan of Bruce and Selena as a relationship, I'm sure you didn't know just how important this story would be for them as a couple.
I
Right,
did
Jacob?
not.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did
It's like
not.
it's such a big moment for them, and
Um,
to briefly mention the animated movie, we'll talk about it more at the end, but I do like how they extend sort of the time uh between like here and when it all sort of starts to go to shit. Like, I like what they do with their relationship there.
yeah. Well, the movie at this point has to diverge because it's at this point where it really doesn't work for that film universe continuity.
Yeah, because they don't have all the extra things that Hush is working off of.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that kind of makes Hush important, so that's a problem. Also, I love that the last line of this issue is Dick was right, I should have shaved.
yeah. But yeah, we move into Batman 616, I think here. The Assassins. It is 616. Okay, cool. Yeah, the
Yes.
Assassins. So probably my least favorite issue of the series, I think,
Interesting.
personally.
I say it's perhaps the most. It feels the most filler. Certainly.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It just does the least, I think.
yeah. Um, and like, if you're someone like Jamie who's already not enjoying where the story's going, um, uh, like I can see where it does because it basically retells a classic Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams
It's pretty much just
Batman
that
story.
Seems,
What was that, Jamie? Sorry.
pretty much just seems like that story. Yeah.
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 But yeah, so we drop in here. We're going after Raish. Well, Batman goes to get Talia. He saves her from these people who've been hired by Raish to get Talia, and Batman saves Talia from there.
On LexCorp 1, uh,
And because we're
Which-
going to be mentioning LexCorp a lot in this, they cut over to the president's office, the Oval Office here with Lex Luthor, and I don't know.
So-
It's just it's not it doesn't add like a ton to the story, but it's just cool to have there.
So is the vice president? They call him Pete.
I don't think
Is it?
no.
Like,
Is-
is it minus those? Is it supposed to be Pete Ross?
I don't know actually. I don't think so. Is it Jamie?
I don't know. Maybe.
Huh.
It's the only
don't
person
know.
I think it could be. But
Like, you call him Pete again. The idea of Lex Luthor as president, eerily prescient.
Yeah. Anyway, so we just get that little scene there. He's just aware of what Batman is doing. But yeah, so we go back to the Batcave here. We find out that Selena has been taken. She's been captured, a la, fucking what's it called? Tales of the Demon. What's the fucking story called?
The Death Dealers. I'm not sure.
I can't
The
think of
one, the obvious one that got adapted into Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, Demon's Quest in
Yeah.
that episode.
Yeah,
But anyway, yeah, so we find out that Catwoman has been captured. Meanwhile, at the home of Jim Gordon, which also worth mentioning here, which I think is another thing
Yes.
that Loeb explains rather well. Jim Gordon. is
Okay,
the commissioner.
just to bring it back to the present, Lex, I just Googled it. It is Pete Ross as the vice president.
What the fuck?
Also, the Secretary of Defense was Lois Lane's dad.
Okay, well that makes sense.
That makes sense. That's
that makes
a
sense.
choice. That is DC. I'm curious. I now I want to read this Era of Superman just to understand why.
I mean, I think if we just kept going on from the post-death of Superman stuff, we could find
yeah,
out.
yeah.
I think this era might be by Malab too. I
Hmm.
don't know though.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Uh,
but yeah. So, all right, yeah. Home of Jim Gordon. He's no longer commissioner. We never mentioned that, but he isn't. So there we go. But Harvey Dent goes to see him and just to say like, "Hey, it's me. I'm normal." And I'm curious, Jacob. Did you have any sort of like misgivings about this whole situation?
Oh, I was suspicious. Partially because the art still always cast one side of his face in shadow for a lot of it,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
played on the Two-Face image, even if it would show that like he was fixed. Also knowing,
And I think Loeb is also purposely playing on the whole both sides match thing from Dark Knight Returns.
yeah,
Yeah.
Because the only other time that this has ever been done, he still turned out fucking crazy.
yeah. And what's interesting is that he is at least on the surface he is sane.
Hmm.
You could make an argument, I think, that perhaps he's not, but he's there. Yeah. And this discussion, and there's like some bits later that might be the highlight of the issue, because this issue is just kind of there.
Yeah, because then we get
Uh,
because the next bit is just it's just a sword fight. that's all
It's
is.
good, it's beautiful, and I love it.
Yeah, it looks because it's Jim Lee, it's
Yeah.
Jim Lee. It's the smooth writing of Jeff Loeb, but it's not the most impressive thing,
Yeah.
I do like the bit that comes after that with Talia and Catwoman, and Shiva comes in to save
when
Talia.
Lady Shiva comes in, which is
Yeah, which is actually kind of a fun parallel considering what we did last time.
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, Shiva comes in. She fights Catwoman. She's obviously a better fighter than Catwoman. I mean, what do you
Gets
want?
trained by the League of Assassins. Bruce stabs Ra's like right in the gut,
Yeah, as you do.
as you do. And well, it's important because we're bringing the Lazarus Pits in play, and at this point, my mind was like, wait, am I just wrong about when Jason Todd comes back to life?
it's
'Cause
fun.
Lazarus-
It's really fun. But I do I do wonder if I did a bit too much hanging that over your head that like, oh yeah, there's a Jason Todd thing in here. Yeah.
Well, it just made me like, I have to know why. Because this could have been where Jason Todd came back. The Lazarus
yeah.
Pits
But we
are
are also
like-
very clearly teasing that here.
Yes. Which is interesting. And it's also true that Talia, the last thing Talia really does before the end of the issue is telling Shiva, to have her father stay out of her life. and being annoyed at just the games.
Mhm.
And
But yeah, we get Catwoman out of there, who has had her ass handed to her by Shiva. Talia, like the fucking smug bitch she is, kisses Batman goodbye, and leaves. And
well, she also is at least respectful of him and Selena. It's like, I
well,
told
she's respectful of their relationship,
shit.
not of Bruce's body. Has she ever been? Has she?
Uh,
Because she fucking drugged him last time, you know? Like it's.
Yeah.
You know that, right, Jacob? Like the conception of Damien wasn't consensual. Like,
I didn't actually.
oh yeah, it wasn't.
That
Yeah,
makes things
yeah,
even more interesting.
Talia drugged him, and the idea was that she was going to create the actual successor to Ra's al Ghul, since Bruce didn't want it. So
Okay.
there's that. But yeah, um, that's the end of that issue. Anyway, so we go into the interlude now from Wizard number 0. This is Interlude the Cave. It's a great little short story in here. It slots in really
Yeah.
nicely. It's a great examination of where Bruce and Selena are at and their relationship at this point.
I love that it includes images of, the Joker, Two-Face, looking at scars.
Mhm.
There's a flashback to like the Long Halloween era, Selena for one panel, which I love the way. I love the way.
Oh,
Jim
yeah,
draws
seeing
that.
Jim Lee draw like, Tim Sale style characters, I think is fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all there is to it. And we get some, after Bruce leaves, Alfred like has a little conversation, sort of paralleling the 2-page opening to this whole thing, and it's cool. It's cool, I like it.
I also, it's funny. It's like, you don't think much of me, do you? Quite the contrary. I think the world of you. And while he may not say it, so does he.
But yeah, so that's the interlude. It's a nice little interlude. Any thoughts on it, Jamie, or should we just move on?
Nothing more to add, I think.
All right. Sorry, I was taking a drink as I said that. All right. Moving on. Issue Batman 617, The Grave. All right, you knew it was coming now, right, Jacob? Like whatever it was, you had to know it was coming.
I was like, it has to be coming until, it actually hits.
Yeah,
So
and then it's so much more fucked up than anything you could have anticipated. But more on that later. In the meantime, Tim Drake is here.
Tim Drake is here.
He's been
finally
absent for most of this story.
It's like, yes, finally, more Tim content.
Yeah.
Tim Drake is now a teenager, and is, not happy about Bruce falling in love and sharing secrets with a criminal. But it's fascinating. I love how he's like, you might have fooled him, seduced him, but I know what you are. And it's just the fight happens, and then Bruce just has to get in between the two of them, because Tim's kind of being an edgy teenager, and all this scene in the cave eventually leads to a scene in front of the tube, like the tube is in the background the entire time.
Yeah. It's almost like without spoiling too much about the end of the story for those listening, like it's almost like they're doing the same thing that's happening to Bruce here with this sort of subliminal messaging. Like they don't actually draw attention to the tube behind them, but it's there, and it's just like it's just reminding you of what's there and
what's there.
Yeah, that's it. They mentioned Jason for very briefly in the inner monologue here, and that's
and only paired with Dick, not even like reflecting on Jason.
Yeah.
And then, like, you still have the animosity between the two characters.
Mm-hmm. Selena's kind of rightfully pissed that, Bruce still hasn't made sure that everybody in the Bat family trusts her yet.
Yeah, when they perhaps should. But we then move, after Selena leaves the Batcave on a motorcycle, to the Huntress, who...
It's a weird scene. It's a weird scene.
It's a weird scene where I was just like, okay, what's going on with this? What she's here for a reason. Why is she here? She was in only 609, and now she's back.
Mhm.
And I guessed Scarecrow fear toxin.
Right.
Which you are correct about, as we'll
Yes.
later find out.
Well, specifically just because, like, it's like, wait, is she betraying Bruce? Because it doesn't seem like she should.
Yeah.
She's been off screen. She hasn't been set up as a villain.
Yeah.
But there is, a cat fight.
Literally.
Literally. And something clicks for Selena. Like, realizing, that something's wrong with her. Meanwhile, Bruce has followed her. He, along with Tim, they swoop down, and then our mysterious bandaged man, we thought was just going to be Harvey Dent,
Is now going after Tim
Tim,
and
calls
calls him a pretender. So yeah, we then see that Scarecrow's involved in all this. It's pretty easy to put together what happened to Huntress there.
This is also the first time hush as like a word is actually spoken in the comic.
Mm-hmm.
And it is through Scarecrow doing the thing that Jeff Loeb likes to make Scarecrow do and saying nursery rhymes,
which is something that, despite the fact that like Loeb makes it a staple of the character, it never carries over into any other version of him.
No, it doesn't, and it's interesting. I think it actually works for a psychotic mind like Jonathan Crane.
And someone that plays on primal fears, most of which probably refer back to someone's childhood.
Yeah.
But I digress. Moving on. So we're in a graveyard now, not just any graveyard. We're fighting Scarecrow in this graveyard. We take off his mask, and we're interrogating him. Batman's sort of like
the way Crane is drawn, just with the mask off.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Like, I think Lee is deliberately referencing the adaptation of Sleepy Hollow, Legend of Sleepy Hollow that Disney did. Because
which one is that? Who's that?
It's like Ichabod and Mr. Toad, I think is what it's called.
Oh, okay, I remember that one. Yeah.
It's like it's Disney did like one film with like, let's do Sleepy Hollow and The Wind in the Willows at the same time because it's Disney and weird. You can see where that's coming from though, with like the way the nose is shaped, that hair.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're interrogating Scarecrow in the middle of all this. We see that the bandaged figure has Tim. He's threatening him. He is holding the same batarang that cut out the newspaper way back in issue 2, and he takes off the bandages, and we get the big reveal: Jason Todd is underneath the bandages. Interestingly, this next cover for chapter 11, when it was first shown in previews, was just Batman there with the red bandaged face behind him, and Jason's corpse was taken out of it, of course, to conceal the fact that Jason was there on the cover, and to leave the ending of that issue a surprise. I don't know. I really like that. It's such a fucked up cover. Oh my god,
it is. Can we also take a minute to appreciate this older Jason Todd Robin design? Like,
yeah,
yeah. Like, the Red Hood design isn't bad. Sometimes it doesn't work, but I like this design even more. Like, there's something so bitter. It's all padded, and you like it. This just threw me for a loop. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's just Jason Todd here.
Like, shouldn't you still be dead?
Yeah. So what are you thinking going in, knowing what Under the Red Hood is, and what this, just seeing what you have just seen? Like, what are you thinking before you read issue 11?
I'm thinking perhaps this is a thing where Under the Red Hood actually retcons some stuff, maybe.
Okay.
Or some sort of shenanigans. The actual explanation is so simple, yet kind of makes sense. It's a little complicated in bits. Because
there's a thing in using Clayface. I mean, spoilers for those listening, it's Clayface. But there's a thing in using Clayface where, like, you want to save a really good reveal for something like this, but also you run the risk of the fact that like, oh yeah, Clayface didn't show up at all in this story. Where the
Yeah.
fuck was he? You know,
Well,
like there was
Clayface
no build up
also-
to this.
Clayface also didn't even show up. Like,
Yeah.
like they say it's
Like,
Clayface, but you never
I don't know how much
see-
I don't know how much you guys know about Arkham City, but like there's a Clayface twist in that, and Clayface isn't anywhere in the game before that. There's like one or two small like Basil Carlo Easter eggs, but like Clayface as a character doesn't show up until the reveal happens, and like it's sort of the same thing here. I don't mind it myself,
even more
but
here, Clayface doesn't show up. You don't ever really see a Clayface as Clayface.
Here, though, what's really interesting is once they bring Clayface into the mix of it all, is they say like, oh, Clayface actually has been here the whole time. You've seen him a couple times already.
You just didn't realize you were seeing him, which
Yeah.
it's
So-
a thing.
So, Jamie, I have to know, as the biggest critic of Hush here out of this group, thoughts on Jason Todd here? What's going through your head as you read this for the first time? Let's cast your mind back however long ago you first read this story.
An interesting one because I actually read Under the Red Hood before this.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
And
So
the
so
edition
that's
I read actually included some of these pages.
yeah. I think I have the same edition where it's like, yeah, like they include the Jason Todd appearance before that, and also, yeah, sorry, just go ahead. You're good.
So obviously I knew this was coming, but
Yeah, so you knew the scene was there. Now does that version that they include in Under the Red Hood? Because I don't think they include the whole issue.
no.
They have the whole Clayface reveal though, right?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, gotcha. So you knew everything that was coming ahead of time. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm also just curious, Jamie, on your opinions of Jason as a character, because even like today, he's still kind of polarizing. Like, some people say he should stay dead. Some people say he should be alive. I personally think he should be alive.
Yes,
agree.
I agree.
Cool.
Uh,
All right. At least we're all on the same page there.
Now, I will say, from what I've heard, the New 52 solo series is apparently terrible from Joey.
It's
from
okay,
other
not
sources?
completely terrible. I just think it should have always been Red Hood Arsenal, and Starfire should have been in Teen Titans, and that's it.
Okay, because I'm sure we'll read that at some point.
Oh, God.
I would almost like to, but part of me almost doesn't want to waste your time and just go straight to Red Hood Arsenal because that's actually a good series. I like that series a lot. It's only like 15 or 16 issues, somewhere around there.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all right, on to Batman 618, the game.
The game.
All right. I'll let you take this one away because it's exciting.
So this is where I am at the edge of my seat. It's at this point I think where I'm on the Discord call. Like
I think we're on the call at this point.
I am like, right, I need to know what's happening. And I'm reading and rereading bits because I'm like, okay, wait, did this happen the way that I think it did?
And I love this especially because without spoiling too much, because we are going to read Under the Red Hood eventually. This scene does sort of get recontextualized by Under the Red Hood. So there are still things here that you won't have noticed until you read Under the Red Hood.
Good to know. Good to know. So Jason is pissed. And one, I love the first two panels, just the broken Jason and now the alive Jason. It's beautiful. Also, I love the design. I think we always need to have Jason Todd in a Red Robin mask with red.
Yeah,
just as a theme.
Yeah, we've taken it away quite a bit recently, haven't we? It's usually just like, oh yeah, here's the Red Hood mask, and underneath it's just Jason. But I do like the added effect of the domino mask.
Yes. And Loebs makes the smart decision to reflect on the fact that Superman died, Green Arrow died, and they are still alive today. Jason was buried here. The grave is empty. His corpse is gone. And there's already kind of a clue that Jason's dialogue is a bit eloquent. Keeping silent, gathering your thoughts, hoping to rattle your opponent. I'll make it simple for you. You've got to get me before I slit this pretender's throat. Tell me, Batman, you let one Robin die, want to go for two.
Now, I'm curious, Jacob, what was your leading theory at this point? Because I don't think you suspected Clayface at all right now, right?
Right. I thought someone was just. I thought maybe like someone did some sort of like plastic surgery on someone. Someone made someone look like Jason Todd just to fuck with
Okay.
Batman.
And I'm curious, when you have thoughts like that, do you think immediately, oh shit, Thomas Elliot is a plastic surgeon? Like he
Well,
could.
that I thought like maybe Tommy's not actually dead, like,
Mm.
or maybe because this is all clearly like some big plan. It was done before his death. Because because the real mastermind behind all of this, I did not see coming, and it's
Mhm.
such a brilliant twist.
One thing I hate about like every collected edition of Hush is it gives that person away like a page before they're actually supposed to be revealed.
Because of the cover.
Yeah, no, not because of the cover, but like literally like a page before, like you see who it is on the next page before it's the actually revealed.
Oh, right, because of
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so Catwoman comes in. There's some fighting. Catwoman saves Tim, which I really hope that like in the Batman title post this actually built up a good Tim Selina relationship, like
Hmm.
just of them not being constantly at each other's throats.
I don't know
Uh,
if it did personally. At least in the stuff that I've read of Batman post Hush, which is a fair bit actually. Most of it just doesn't feature Selena and Tim interacting.
uh,
So I don't know if
that's a
it's stuff
shame.
outside of what I've read, but there's that.
That's a shame. But yeah, and I also thought, I also thought, it's brought up the Lazarus Pit. I thought it could be a Lazarus Pit, and that this is Jason, but Jason may not have actual time to live because you could always make Lazarus Pit be corrupted, and it only gave him a short period of time to live.
Mhm.
Um, and uh, Jason's anger is there, like it leads into
Oh
the
yeah,
actual title page
yeah.
of the game. How could you let me die?
Mhm.
uh, and it's basically this is all Jason getting his anger out, and
Yeah.
it's he's not wrong. you know Jason does deserve respect that I think Bruce gives him, just not
Mhm.
on
But
the
right now,
outside
Bruce is focused on fighting Jason as an enemy
as
because
an enemy.
Jason only wants to kill him. At
And,
least
and Bruce is
as we
also
see it right now.
suspicious. Bruce is also almost immediately suspicious. If you are who you say you are, uh, then you already know. Thinking what we do as a game is what got Robin killed. Um,
So let's talk about that line.
yeah,
Because that's a take.
it's
That's
a
a take.
take. Also, not accurate to Death in the Family.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's what got Robin taken off of active duty in that first issue. But
Yeah.
that active duty was reinstated in the next issue when Bruce found him in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Like it's again, there's this perception of what Death in the Family is.
Yeah. And I think it's unfortunately something that even Jeff Loeb kind of falls
Kind of
into
falls into,
here. Yeah.
and he perhaps shouldn't have.
Yeah. But whatever, is what it is. Overall, there are far more egregious versions of saying like, "Oh yeah, Jason Todd was a fucking kid that abused the Robin costume." It's like no, like that's not what Loeb is
No,
saying here. There are people that actually think that.
Loeb is at least putting it in the death of an innocent, death of a tragedy, death as a tragedy. It's not he did. It's not like he deserved it. I mean,
Yeah,
because there's this dialogue between Tim and Selena, all about you have to let him do this alone. The entire time I've been Robin, every lesson, every move that Batman has taught me is intended to keep what happened to Jason from happening to me. No matter what he says, Jason's death still haunts him. Why else would he keep Jason's costume so prominently in the cave?
that's
Uh,
and it's weird. Like that's the page right after the whole like thinking it's a game line, and like I think that's a Loeb perfectly getting Death in the Family. There's that. It's getting Death in the Family better than Jim Starlin.
yeah,
Um,
it's reflecting on the fact that we killed a child.
yeah. But
Yeah. Um,
whatever.
and you have
Um,
Jason then sort of trying to give it all away. I hate to admit I'm a little disappointed. I mean, I know you were distracted by getting a little action with Catwoman. Then the death of Tommy Elliott really pushed your buttons. Going after the Joker, Ra's al Ghul, everybody but the right somebody. Come on, Batman. It was right in front of you the entire time. Just like the Purloined Letter, Edgar Allan Poe's story, the very first detective story. Remember, someone cut your bat line. And so I've not read the Purloined Letter. I've read some Poe, but I've not read that. But it's interesting that we're going back to basically a story from the 1800s.
And also, because I know you've seen the Under the Red Hood movie, the cutting your bat line thing, like that's part of Under the Red Hood.
Yeah.
Like that's something that Jason actually does.
Which is, again, it's interesting.
There's a lot to work on there. But yeah.
Well, it's also interesting that this is also Clayface, considering I'm assuming it's the Basil Karlo version of Clayface, right?
It would be Basil Karlo.
So, who was an actor, probably be really familiar with the works of Edgar Allan Poe. Especially,
but also to know certain things that Jason is saying here.
Yeah, like
it's a well prepared role. Let's say that,
It's fascinating, and what tips it off is, you may have a lot of facts, personal history, anecdotes. You may have even set up all those incidents to echo what's happened in the past, but you are not the Robin who died.
Also worth noting, the page right before that 2-page spread has a little flashback to Jason stealing the tires.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so yeah, great 2-page spread there. I also think worth noting on the Under the Red Hood animated movie, I think it steals a lot of its final confrontation aesthetic from this scene right here.
Oh, perhaps.
Because like the Under the Red Hood comic like has a lot of that, but I think like they take the confrontation aesthetic from this scene.
And
but anyway,
you can see why.
Oh yeah, it looks fantastic. But yeah, so
it's this interesting idea. It's that this fake Jason is, I only wanted to be loved, Batman, and that just is like, right, you're not really Jason, because as Jason starts melting into clay, that was the mistake you made. Even in the end, Jason knew how much I loved him.
And we get a great like watercolor sort of flashback panel of Jason and Bruce. And it looks so nice.
It's so nice.
But yeah, then we start to close off issue 11. And Bruce lays out why he knew it wasn't Jason, it was Clay, whatever. He talks to Selina and then goes off to the clock tower to talk with Oracle, who actually appears physically in this as well. So that's nice. But yeah, so they talk about all the evidence they've gathered so far leading up to this.
They have to find the Huntress, who's taken a bike and ditched it, and she's a loose end. She's probably just running out of fear because clearly the fear toxin has affected her, and she was brought in into this actual plot because of Scarecrow. And what's really interesting is that Oracle's the one who figures out who's behind it all. That there was this electronic Lee-Ray you found hidden underneath your computer in the cave. The design work was flawless. Any idea whose work it was? I think I do. I think you do too. Or you wouldn't have asked me. I routed the device through the computer, and look what it can do. So we then move to one of the weirdest bits.
Yeah.
So Batman goes to confront this guy in a trench coat. Because people just wear large brown trench coats in this entire story. And it's Harold. Harold.
At this point, I was like, because remember, I'm reading this on call, so I'm just asking, who the fuck is this guy?
I was like, and like they do explain it, of course, not until after he dies. but they do explain it. And he's a real character. Like he's a character that
Yeah.
it's not like Jeff Loeb just made up this guy to like have an easy out for the explanation in the end.
Yeah, this is a character who was like created by I think Marv Wolfman of all people.
Marv Wolfman and Alan
Yeah.
Grant. Yeah, yep.
So two legends making a mechanic character for Batman, which is
background.
I even said to Joey, I love to be able to read like just this character's first appearance just out of sheer curiosity. And you can get it digitally.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sadly, not physically because certain pieces have been put out of print, and they really shouldn't have. DC.
Yep. But anyway, yeah. So Harold is killed, and we see that it is the bandaged figure has come face to face with Batman. He says, "What is a friend? A single soul dwelling in two bodies," which takes us into Batman 619, the end.
The end.
And also, the cover. Let's talk about the cover. It gives away the whole fucking thing.
It gives away the game. Yeah.
I don't know what the thought process is behind this, but why? Like, fucking why?
I don't know. Maybe because like maybe they thought people had already worked it out, even though I don't know how you could have worked it out.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe the hints are there, but there's nothing telling you that the Riddler we saw before wasn't actually the Riddler, like other than the less than stellar Riddle.
Yeah.
I mean,
but even then, that's just like one minor appearance that maybe you could even forget about, like
yeah,
in the grand scheme of things. It's more interesting because the issue 11 ends with clearly Harvey Dent because two guns, bandages, trench coat. It's
I mean, it's not Harvey Dent.
Yeah, but
yeah,
like you're meant to think it's Harvey Dent. Like that's what you're meant to think. Anyway, we move on to the end, where we have our figure, who I refuse to call Hush because
that's not his name. That's
not his name.
Not his name.
That is the title of the miniseries.
Movie.
Every reappearance of the character since, apparently. But yeah, he's again quoting Aristotle about friends being two souls in one body. And Bruce is just trying to go through like who quotes Aristotle? Maxi Zeus?
Like, and that is easily my favorite theory that Bruce comes up with in this whole thing. That it's fucking Maxi Zeus.
It's like, well, and it's very fair. It's like, I don't have enemies that quote Aristotle.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's that. We get a little backstory on Harold. And then the fight begins. He starts taking on the bandaged figure, and Batman says the game ends tonight, and we get chapter 12, the end. This is the final issue here. It's very exciting, isn't it? But we sort of like recap all the information that we know up to this point. The bandaged figure starts to sort of like drop little hints that he may be Thomas Elliot.
But it's never actually confirmed.
Yeah.
And that's the important part. Like,
the thing that we know by the end of this is that Thomas Elliot is not dead.
Yes.
But I would say it's almost definite that Thomas Elliot is not the figure currently fighting Batman.
No. Well, it's also very possible that this is Clayface again.
Oh yeah, it could totally be Clayface again. Well, that's probably the most likely theory. Yeah.
Because like it's clear that Tommy Elliot is in on it somehow.
Yeah.
But again, you could also have the plausible deniability that he was being forced to be in on it, forced to give up a lot of his secrets, especially when we figure out who the actual mastermind is, who's planned all this, who's responsible for this, who is not this figure. There's this idea that this figure claims to be he was never angry that your father let my father die on the operating table. It was that he let my mother live. I insisted their driver stay home that night. A rainy night, a severed brake line. I wanted my parents to die, Bruce, and your father ruined that. Again, this is stuff that's specifically meant to just be fucking with Bruce and not actually what happened. Just because Thomas Elliot, as a character before this, hasn't really shown an interest in being outright evil at all, like not even being hinted at.
Yeah.
And again, it's this entire point is just to break Bruce as a character. Because
all this culminates then in Gordon and Harvey arriving, and Harvey just shoots the bandaged figure point blank. Also worth noting, I think at this point that the bandaged figure, is actually wearing an H on his costume.
Yes, which is again very weird. But he's shot point blank, goes into the water, and they don't find the body.
No, yeah, Bruce goes in looking for it, and it's just not there.
Yeah. Again, implying that this is also Clayface, especially since the figure is wearing basically the same Robin outfit, just with an H.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, wait, is there anything in issue in chapter 11 that like shows? Oh yeah, because he's wearing an R on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
We find out that it was Harvey who shot Elliot in that alley. It's how I knew the Joker was innocent. You know,
that's how he was able to get Joker out, and
it turns out one of the big twists, the body we saw was Clayface again.
Yep. Yeah. So like, oh, it's so good. It's so smart because like it's doing to the reader what the characters are meant to be doing to Batman, and that's just making you question everything. How much of what I've seen has not been real. Who's actually behind all this, and how much do I actually know? And it's interesting, and the fact that there are still to this day no definitive answers as to. I mean, there are some definitive answers to some of the things in here, but
a lot of it is meant to be just ambiguous.
Yeah.
I'd argue that this, if we're going to be taking sort of an analogy to like a detective like Sherlock Holmes, this is the study. This is a Scandal in Bohemia, the one that Holmes doesn't win, that ends with just not all the questions answered. Like Batman's been outsmarted.
So then Gordon puts Harvey Dent under arrest for the murder of Thomas Elliot. Harold is dead. Batman takes Harold's body. Meanwhile, Catwoman clears things up with Huntress. It was indeed fear toxin. I don't know. I don't feel too strongly about that scene.
It's very obvious. She really wasn't in on anything. She was just manipulated herself. But more importantly, in the Batcave, we have Superman. And
really,
Batman.
just how deeply this game has run and how long it's gone on, because Harold was helping out in the Batcave forever, at least 10 years. I mean, 10 years of comics releasing, that is, not to say in universe time.
In universe, a long time.
Yeah. But yeah, so Harold put these little things in place, little subliminals, as Batman calls them, of just flashing for a brief second, milliseconds, Thomas Elliot's face, just to know when he was knocked out to call for Thomas Elliot. That's who he should have help him.
All because of something in the back of Bruce's, the base of Bruce's skull, so tiny, possibly a homing device that Clark burns out, which terrifying image. Beautifully drawn, because you never actually see it. You just see the red eyes and Bruce clenching his hand to the arm of his chair.
But then we put it all together, and we go to Arkham Asylum, and we get the scene. First thing I want to ask, Jamie, do you have issues with this scene?
It's done pretty well as revealed, but I just not a fan of it.
So is there anything you can pinpoint that makes it not work for you?
I think it's just that building up Hush is this big threat, and then revealing that, oh no, he's just a pawn too. It just
See, I kind of like the idea that he's a pawn, that he's not like the big mastermind behind it, which is certainly something that, you know, obviously the animated movie gets very wrong.
Yeah.
That, you know,
That was-
like that it is all just a massive game, and that in this, because Loeb uses the plethora of characters here as sort of chess pieces, and that there's one of these characters that we've seen here that is the person playing chess and isn't one of the pieces. Batman's one of the pieces. Catwoman's one of the pieces. Joker's one of the pieces. Fucking Hush himself, the bandaged man, is one of the pieces. And I was always really into that idea. But unfortunately, as we said, the cover gives it all away. Riddler is the man behind it all. It's still a great twist, no matter what the cover says. You know,
I will say, interesting to Jamie's point, it might work because in my mind, I didn't have some big expectation for Hush to be a villain. Like, I knew of Hush the story. I knew there was a character people refer to as Hush that's like just a dude in a trench coat with bandages over his head. But like, I didn't have him as this is part of Batman's great rogues. So that might have been why throughout this reading this story, I like the reveal went off better for me than say Jamie.
So you're saying it's possibly more of an expectations thing?
It's very possible. Well, because like, I think oddly enough, in this Batman block, we could talk of episodes that we're covering. We could very much talk about expectations for a story. Like Death in the Family is a story that's very much built up as this classic where Jason Todd dies, when really it isn't that. It's very weak. Well, Hush was the only expectation I had is Jeff Loeb is writing and Jim Lee is drawing, so it's going to be a mystery. It's probably going to be decent. So that could be it. And expectations do influence how people see media. Like,
oh, definitely.
Like there's it's and it's an important part of media discourse discussion to realize that you're never going to be able to fully be unbiased when engaging with a piece of media. Like you're going to bring your own expectations, your own readings, which is why having Jamie here is the obvious good decision to have someone where a story fell down for him, whereas it didn't for us.
Yeah. But let's get into this scene. What we're doing at the beginning here is
Roger
just saying like
Stern level dialogue.
Oh yeah, but
so
I mean,
well.
oh yeah, I think it's so smartly done. Mostly what we're doing here is just how we got each of these villains involved. You know, how do we get Clayface or Harley or Ivy or Scarecrow involved in all this? All the while we just see this purple gloved hand doing like a crossword puzzle, and
I love that the Joker was just at first when he heard the Jason Todd gag, he couldn't resist.
I love it. Oh my god.
And I love it. It's like, how did you know it was me? Elliot's medical records are in storage in Philadelphia. You didn't use your real name, but Arthur Wynn, the man who invented the crossword puzzle, that was the missing piece, Riddler.
We find out
he
that
is a smug bastard.
Oh yeah. We find out that the Riddler had cancer, and that it was terminal. There was no way to cure it. So that's how he got Ra's involved in all this. He used one of Ra's Lazarus pits, and Ra's was pissed that somebody broke into it and used it without his permission. And through it all, I love the way this is said. I'll just read off this next bit of dialogue. So we could talk about like getting Thomas Elliot involved. Riddler says, and oh my, did he have a mat on for Bruce Wayne? So Batman says, so you came up with a bandaged man in the trench coat. Hush. It started as a joke, you know. We had to keep it secret. Then Scarecrow starts singing the song, Hush Little Baby. It's about a kid who can't be satisfied, and it stuck. But in order to make it all work, you had to solve the riddle. Yes, the Lazarus Pit gives you a unique kind of clarity. Riddle me this: who is that under Batman's mask? And now the world is my oyster, right, Bruce? And my fucking god, I love that. Oh my god. So Riddler just knows who Bruce is, and like, once again, this is Jeff Loeb playing in main continuity. Like,
So
this is just a
Riddler,
thing that's here now.
I'm guessing that's a thing that like also had ramifications that other authors had to follow up on.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can't just wave that away unless you
Unt-
unless you reboot the whole universe. But,
universe.
who's gonna do
No one
that?
doing that.
That never happens in
No,
DC.
no, never. But we do get sort of like the greatest sort of payoff to that, where like Riddler says like, I could just tell anyone, and Batman responds with, well, what time is it when an elephant sits on the fence? And Riddler goes, well, time to get a new fence. Everybody knows that. The riddle's worthless. A riddle that everybody knows the answer to is worthless. Is Batman's point. So Riddler would never go out there because he's just so fucking obsessed with this.
He also then just threatens, in case you ever again do decide to trade on my identity, keep in mind, Ra's al Ghul is still looking for who used his pit. Question: how would you fare against the entire League of Assassins?
Mhm.
You have
So, of
enemies
course-
in very high places, Edward.
So we still like sort of like put Riddler in his place in the end, but Riddler does get one great little jab in at the end. Batman says, one last thing: why Jason? Why bring the boy into it? Question: how many times have you beaten me? Answer: 5, 10, 100. But question: what is Batman's greatest defeat? Answer: the death of Robin. Didn't like having your nose rubbed in it, did you? Batman says his grave is empty. Where is Jason's body now? That is a riddle, isn't it? And Batman just fucking punches him. So I'm curious what you made of that line, Jacob, because
So
it could mean a couple different things.
it clearly means that Jason, at this point, is still alive. They are still planning to bring back Jason Todd.
Which is
as
interesting because like you'll see when we read Under the Red Hood eventually, like they don't play around with it for long. I think it's only a couple issues in where they show his face.
Yeah.
And so here, like DC was never shy about the fact that like, yeah, we're gonna bring back Jason Todd. Like this finished releasing in 2003. Under the Red Hood started, I think, in 05, 04 or 05, somewhere around there. So there was still some time in between. But DC was never hiding from the fact that they planned to bring back Jason, I'd say.
Yeah.
But what that means there is obviously meant to say that like, oh yeah, Jason is still alive. But does Riddler know? Does Riddler know where Jason is?
I don't think he does.
Has he interacted with Jason? That is something we will have to find out, and it will be addressed, I promise. So we leave Riddler alone,
and
we
end.
get the last scene here. God, I love this scene. I mean, I've been saying that about so many scenes here, but this I adore this scene. We start to wrap things up. It's a fairly normal conversation. Batman and Catwoman are going to go on as they have been. And Batman is still like, saying like, oh yeah, well, there are these questions here. We both know what Scarecrow said about something else affecting me. Catwoman goes, yes, and that could have been a bluff, or the subliminals you told me about. Batman goes, or we could both be under Ivy's spell. To which Catwoman says, hush. And it could mean nothing.
I think it means nothing.
Probably does mean nothing.
Yeah.
But it freaks Bruce the fuck out, and he grabs her, says, "Why did you say that?" And just like he cannot keep doing this because he is so. Riddler has gotten so under his skin that he cannot trust even the person that he has been the person that he has loved most for the past couple months at least. And it's as someone that dislikes the idea that Bruce and Selina can't be together permanently, I think this is probably the best that their breakup has ever been done.
I don't even think it's a breakup. I think it's just a rock in the relationship that we need to then move on from and develop further. And I'm sure other writers do that. I mean, I know the Tom King run has an arc called The Wedding.
Yeah, it's you will see. I love me some Tom King. You'll see. But yeah, and it's a great breakup. Quote unquote breakup. And we end on a great page as Selina leaves. Bruce looks down at this grave, which was, I think, meant to be Harold's grave. And that says the end, and Intermolix says someday, and it's just it's fucking great. And that's the end of the story. And that's Batman Hush, and it's fucking brilliant, I think, at least.
Before we move into final thoughts, of course.
Yeah, we have one last Twitter question here. Comes from our friend Marcus Cotton at Sir Jedi Sentinel. Says, I guess this is a question for the two familiar with the comics. Hush as a character has had diminishing returns since his initial appearance here. What would you do with Thomas Elliot? parentheses, personally, I try to redeem him and have him join the Bat family as the team medic. Jamie, any thoughts on that?
Um, honestly, I think he would just be better being left alone.
That's true, but I think for what Loeb is going for at the end here, where he definitely wants to imply that Thomas is still around.
Yeah.
If you had to do something with Tommy, what would you do?
Marcus is actually quite a good idea.
Yeah, I had never
Quite
considered that, but I really did like that idea. There could be a really good redemption arc in there,
Yeah,
I'd say.
okay.
Because the only big return that I'm familiar with is Batman Eternal, and I don't like the way he's used there because he's a very generic villain. I'd say they don't really dig into what Thomas and Bruce have together, what their relationship is. I'm not familiar with any of the other appearances outside of that, but that's all I really know.
I know this is the one that everybody talks about because, you know, it's Jeff Loeb, and it knows how to use a character like Thomas Elliot and the brown suited trench coat villain who I refuse to call Hush.
But no, I mean, yeah, I do like Marcus's idea. I'm not sure if I'd have any other better ideas outside of that. But Jacob, as someone that only knows that he has returned, what do you think you would do? Like, if you had the option to like just work off of Hush and not any other appearances outside of that, what would you do?
I would keep him mainly in the background, and I would also maybe just use him as a red herring for a greater scheme, like he's used here, because I don't think it tracks that he wanted to kill his parents. Like what?
Yeah, yeah. Because that dialogue towards the end does sound like Riddler heard what Tommy's past was and said, "Okay, that's a good villain backstory," and had Clayface say that.
Yeah. Or if it's true, go full out explore stuff from Hush's perspective and Hush's and Elliot's own childhood, to actually show it. Maybe even start with that trip to Metropolis being the moment where Elliot went crazy seeing a supervillain and started to admire supervillains or something. But
that could be cool. That could be cool.
But again, he would not refer to himself as Hush.
No. I like where the Hush title comes from in the actual story. How Riddler uses it with Scarecrow and all that. But yeah, that's that. All right. Let's fucking talk about it.
Let's talk
about the animated movie.
So it starts out pretty good ish. I'm kind of annoyed that they use Bane instead of Killer Croc.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Yeah, there's no reason to swap it out.
Like, you want to know how Bane was portrayed? You know what it reminded me of? The portrayal in Batman and Robin.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's that bad, but yeah, it's pretty bad.
He doesn't feel Bane isn't like. There's clearly a reason why Loeb didn't use Bane here, because like Bane is an intelligent character.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that Loeb is very clearly trying to use all the villains he didn't use in Long Halloween or Dark Victory, like he knew that was one like not to touch here because Bane can't really be manipulated, especially not by someone like Riddler. You know.
No, and that's the thing. The cast in the movie is great. The guy playing the Riddler is also really good.
And I don't know, Jennifer Morrison as Catwoman.
Jennifer Morrison is good, though. I just can't not hear her character from House.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I like how they, instead of having Huntress, they had Barbara Gordon Batgirl in the early scenes, and how they play off some of the early scenes with, crash one of the Porsches. So Bruce Wayne, and it's an interesting scene, but I think the movie just it doesn't really know how it wants to adapt Hush.
Yeah, I think the only section that it really nails is the Metropolis section.
The Metropolis section is great.
Yeah, that's about like all they really get right.
Yeah. Also, I don't love the guy playing the Joker in it.
He's all right. I do like the one joke they have with Clayface in Arkham where he's behind the cell. I can't remember how it goes, but I remember really liking that joke.
And I think just the third act falls apart. Just
Oh,
because
yeah.
because again, it's changing kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it tries to make the Riddler an action style villain, and he's not.
Yeah.
Like he's a skinny nerd who is just a smartass.
Yeah.
Like it's a misinterpretation. I like Jason O'Meara. I like that Damien's there for 5 minutes and is a little shit.
Yeah, he takes the very brief Tim spot. And
and
Sean Mayer as Nightwing. He's fantastic. Yeah, I love him.
Yeah.
Like the cast is great, but outside of that,
it's pretty.
Oddly enough, I think you could do a fairly good adaptation of Hush in a 90-minute movie.
Maybe like a 2-hour movie, I'd say.
Yeah.
Maybe, but you don't need two films like say Long Halloween needed 2 films, or just because
and even then they still cut a lot from Long Halloween.
Yeah. Well, because again, this is 12 issues of a regular length comic book, and there are things you can cut, you can trim down here to make it work in film better. But honestly, you really need Jason Todd in that continuity to make the final reveal work.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't pack nearly as much of a punch.
No.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad there's at least something that Jamie likes less than the actual Hush comic.
Yeah.
So there's
that.
That.
Made me like the comic more.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take that win. I'll take that. All right, I guess we start wrapping up.
We should.
All right. Wow. That was Hush. Holy shit! This is almost 3 hours. My fucking god.
This is what happens when we get a guest.
Yeah, and also just dig your teeth into a really good story, I think. Yeah. So Jamie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Really does mean a lot. Yeah. I think we'll have you on in another episode soon if you're still up for that one that I talked about a while back.
Yeah.
But yeah, so have you on in future episodes, definitely. Everybody follow Jamie on Twitter at Jamie_season7.
He does have good Doctor Who opinions, mostly.
About the Pertwee era. That's about
it. Era. You don't need to talk about his McCoy opinions. Those are...
Those are the bad ones. But also follow me on Twitter at Jomo with 3 underscores, and follow Jacob at Newt5996. I'll leave all 3 of us linked down in the description. You can go check us out there. Oh yeah, shit! I almost forgot. We gotta talk about what the next episode is.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think you have a guess. I'm pretty sure you're right.
I have a guess.
If I already guessed, so say your guess and say your reasoning.
So I'm gonna give my reasoning first. So I should say to our audience, my original guess was going to be Under the Red Hood, but then Joey just flat out told me
it's not. I was like, I'm gonna make you wait. I'm gonna make you wait.
Yeah, see, Jamie, that would be the sensible guess. But here's the thing about
Joey. We don't do sensible things on this podcast.
Yeah, Joey's not sensible. I realized early on you had said something about wanting to get as caught up with Batman as fast as possible. So I think we are continuing the Scott Snyder run with 0 Year.
You are correct.
Oh, good. I was afraid I could be wrong there.
We are doing 0 Year next time. That'll be Batman issues. Fuck, what are the issues? I don't know what the issues are. Let me 1 second. Hang on.
We're vamping. Jamie, give us your Ambassadors of Death takes for no reason.
No, don't let him do that. He'll go on forever. All right, so okay, here we go. So 0 Year is Batman's numbers 21 through 27 and 29 through 33. It's another 12 issues. It'll probably be a longer episode. It's collected in the volumes 0 Year Secret City and 0 Year Dark City, volumes 4 and 5 of the New 52 Batman run. You could also get it as a complete collected edition with all 12 of those issues. I know I think it's like a hardcover edition and paperback, I think. I don't know. But you can get that. It's also collected in the first volume of the Scott Snyder Omnibus. Yeah, I guess that's about it. Yes. 0 Year next time, though. Yeah, it's exciting. So
yes, very, very exciting.
Yeah. Wow. So, yeah, fun. Yeah, okay, anyway. What the hell was that?
My watch picked up me saying very exciting. And
what?
Yeah, I don't
What the
know.
fuck? It didn't catch anything else you said in the past 2 hours and
No,
53
it
minutes.
just very exciting.
All right. Well, all right.
right.
As I said, follow us all on Twitter. That'll be linked in the description. Also linked in the description. You can buy Hush on Amazon, and you can get the 0-year volumes linked down in the description. They're all there.
If you have recently subscribed to us on YouTube, thank you. We've seen tremendous growth.
Yeah. As far as and for Sandman fans listening, if you're listening, because that's where we've gotten most of our viewership from recently. We have another Sandman scene coming out soon that we're doing that I'm doing with Taya again. So more dream and death stuff. So that'll be fun.
As well as
one Mr. Brian Corgan in an undisclosed role. So
and also, if you like long form content, there will be a bonus episode coming very soon on the Sandman.
On the Sandman, we also have another
Nice.
bonus episode. I think we're gonna try to get out later this month, if not early next month.
Yes, very soon.
On some Marvel
content.
Yeah, that'll be fun. But yeah, next time, 0-year. That'll be the last of this current Batman block. Then we'll move into a new block of comics, and that'll be it then. So, that won't be it. Like, we're doing more episodes, but that's what we're doing. I'm gonna fucking close out because I'm tired.
Yes. Give us the outro, Joey.
All right. So thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan
and Jacob Lickliner
And me.
and Jamie.
and
Goodbye.
Jamie. Goodbye.